turning team fights around. So who's gonna come up on top on game 2? We're gonna find out. Casters, over to you.
Thanks a bunch, Mika. Like you mentioned, this is going to be game number 2. EVOS Esports and Buriram United. I mean, looking at how things are going, they had an insane game number 1 win. And game number 2, I think things are just going to get more intense here, TJ.
Yeah, and one of the things that's already blowing my mind is the shift from EVOS. Game 1 to 2, they go, all right, game 1, our late game couldn't measure up to the damage that was being offered by Buriram in the team fights. Let's pull out some tanks of our own. We get the Nunu jungle from Valdez. One of the first times I've ever seen that from one of the best junglers on the world, picking up a new character here on the stage. And we get Rich again on the Gragas to be that beefy frontline for G4's return to the Ahri, which he did a truly incredible amount of damage on last game, and Cat Satan's pivot to the long-ranged poke, the Varus damage that can go over the top of that front line.
And we traditionally see Varus paired together with some sort of enchanter, another kind of lane bully like the Nami, so that you get confirmed priority in lane. But in this case, we're actually seeing Rich continue with his Gragas, and he's had a good performance, but I loved seeing Supporter on his Galio last game.
Yeah, Supporter did an incredible job. Supporter's also just incredible at basically everything he plays. And here he's gonna be in a bit of a weird spot because there aren't...
lane swap.
Sorry?
This is a lane swap, yeah. Archie's gone down to the bot side with Supporter. Kinemon is going to be up against Katsun in mid.
Yeah, so because of the way that this has worked out, they've decided to send the mid laner down there, and that's why it's a bit of a weird spot, because they're kind of treating this Ziggs as an AD carry. Archie's not going to be able to contribute to side lanes as much as you normally want a Ziggs to do. Normally your Ziggs roams out of mid and throws some bombs into the side lanes, or roams out of mid to participate in a gank in the side lanes. They're instead putting all of the mid lane gold onto Kinemon and leaving Archie kind of in the side lane for late game, which is an interesting pivot from Buriram. I won't say whether or not I think it's good or bad yet, because I simply don't know why they've done it, and I likely won't until I see how it's playing out.
Sure, I mean, they're starting to get a little bit of control around, but and Archie is a safe lane that he can work from, so it's, I mean, looking fine in the early game. Neither side's really able to pull too much of an advantage, but looking at the compositions... Sorry?
EVOS just matched in.
Yeah.
They take the Varus into Kai'Sa mid, and they've brought G4 down to dual Archony.
And it kind of feels like with how BRU are going about this, you know, it seems like they are going to continue with having this late game kind of carry in the form of Kinemon. And so this early game is kind of beneficial to them.
Yeah, and it maybe is just because the Kai'Sa can survive the Ahri duel much better than the Ziggs. Ziggs versus Ahri kind of sucks as a matchup. So maybe that's the entirety of the thought that goes into it. But either way, I think Buriram is winning off of this exchange because Kai'Sa mid is very viable. It certainly provides a ton of damage. And even though EVOS with this roam have got the Varus mid, Varus is going to have a critical problem in that it's really easy to gank a Varus. It's really easy to catch a Varus out. And so there's going to be constant attempts to do that from Buriram, whereas this Kai'Sa can kind of watch out for herself in a way that not very many AD carries can.
But EVOS Esports are doing a very good job by ensuring Rich is nearby, so they are able to prevent that gank coming across easily. Support is going to match that as well, and I think EVOS Esports made a great adaptation by batting away the Twisted Fate from Archie.
Yeah. No, overall, both these teams are matching each other very well. Archony being shifted over to the Ziggs. He's very good on the character, but he doesn't have the same sideline pressure. And right now, with the way this is played out, you can see EVOS actually benefiting from both lane matchups, because they get the Ahri hard shoving down bottom, being able to win the matchup versus Archony, and in the mid lane, Cat Satan's exercising his range advantage versus Kinemon. And we haven't seen any jungle presence or roam presence from Buriram to punish the low mobility Varus. A Vietnamese team, for instance, would just instantly have done that. But Buriram are a little slower paced, and so they don't take advantage of it in time. And now we're into our first objective fights with the gold advantage skewing slightly over to EVOS.
Absolutely, and it seems that BRU are going into this in a much slower pace, not willing to commit as badly. Well, I say that, but the fight still breaks down. Shiba flashes the wall after confirming the Dragon Kinemon, repositions back with the Killer Instinct, dodges past some of the damage, but was still in the pit. Gets away though.
Yeah, I don't know about that Killer Instinct. Noel up top.
Oh, locked in the Cataclysm. They're
I don't
trying to
know
hold
about that
Veldus in
Cataclysm.
place. The turret's taking him down, but he has enough HP and the Gargoyle Stoneblade.
Just a truly bewildering series of affairs.
They're not
Down
quite
bottom,
over here,
Shiba's gonna go
TJ.
for one more. They'll get that kill. So first turret of the game falls to EVOS, meaning they win the exchange. And Buriram are going to be down a sizable chunk of gold as a result. And I think EVOS's ability to just put Buriram on the back foot during the early game has really paid off here. This will be, if Shiba goes for this play versus G4, that will be their first aggressive play of the game. Let's watch it.
They're gonna try and maybe get something done. G4 survives
Wow.
with the flash though. He's gonna use the Spirit Rush as well. It's 2 summoners committed. But I have to say, TJ, I'm not a huge fan of Vi's going into Ari and Camille kind of compositions. I mean, looking back at it, you know, they picked the Vi pretty late in, or pretty early on, and so it seems like, you know, EVO's Esports just responded really well to the Vi pick.
Yeah, and you can see there that it's just so hard for, I suppose, any jungler, but especially a Vi, to gank someone like an Auric. It's just not happening, I'm gonna be real with you. And the advantage that Vi gives you, the reason a lot of people pick Vi, is because she's a really solid frontliner, she's really good at finding engage for compositions that don't have a lot of engage. But who do you engage onto versus EVOS here? Because the only real answer is you want the Vi to either counter Thipper's dive or get access to Catsafe. And you're not going to reach Catsafe in
No,
this team.
Veldus, he walks into the wrong spot, gets caught out, into the wrong jungle. It might be his own, but it's been taken over by BRU, infestated by this red team. And EVO's Esports flash committed after flash just to get away.
And so, I don't know, there's two sides of it. You're not going to get through that front line of Valdez, and you see that there. Buriram can't access anyone behind Valdez. But also, they have enough damage to fight that front line.
I love that response, CJ. You're just like, yeah, well, I mean, it kind of happened, and here we have it once again. The re-engage coming across from BRU. Valdez now back in
Here
it
comes
with the
Valdez.
snowball charging up against Noel. Looks for it, drifts across the wall, flashed away from the Java to survive. But it's a nice re-engage from EVOs to get something back.
Yeah, they get a little bit of their pride back. We'll see if they can get this turret as well. It's so hard to hold on to turrets. As Buriram, I think, agree with our assessment. They go, wow, we've really been forced onto the back foot. We played this early game very slow, and they take things up a notch. We start seeing Archony access the map and be used as that Ziggs, just pure turret sieger. I do want to flag, because we had a conversation about this yesterday. This is a Luden's Echo first Ziggs, so he's going to have a little bit more poke damage during this early game. And overall, Buriram is stabilized very well out of EVOS' tricksy, topsy-turvy early few moments, and we're in a dead even game state, headed to a late game that honestly is also pretty dead even.
You have a couple of differences, but similar kind of approaches as well. And BRU, I mean, they're playing a composition that we've already seen work in Game 1. Now with some adaptation by EVO's Esports, we'll see if they're able to respond adequately. And I have to say that this Nunu, despite its incredibly high win rate, doesn't seem to have as much impact in this game.
It's harder to measure a Nunu's impact. I think it actually may be the deciding factor of this game, because you're essentially getting a second support character that also does the damage in the late game, also does the damage of a solid top lane character. He's going to be able to be that bruiser in the front line of fights, denying entry to a lot of front-to-back characters. It's very hard to get past a Nunu if you're Noel or if you're Shiba.
G4 starting to charge up, making use of that low waist movement
There he
speed.
comes.
Valdez coming in with the snowball. You can't outsmite a Nunu, so they're just keeping away, keeping it an arm's length away from the dragon and taking down the Nunu first. Good damage coming in with the Killer Instinct to confirm that kill, but you've dashed into the charm from G4. Unfortunately, no follow-up damage. They can't take him down, but it's jungler for jungler across both sides.
And you see, again, both sides of it, you can't get past Valdez. He's such a big kind of linebacker in these fights, but Buriram also have enough damage at this pace to just fight front to back and burn through Valdez. So that's the discussion we need to have. At what point do EVOS come online such that they can contest a front to back team fight? And as these team fights go to Buriram, of course, those numbers get harder and harder. What is kind of the angle back in for EVOS? Well, it's this game state, it's this lane state. They're incredibly good on the map, they're incredibly good at generating efficient farm, and you can watch as Cat Satan completes his Muraman and goes full lethality around the second item. He's going to be really scary in slower team fights, where EVOS can set up and poke out. They'll use Cat Satan to do damage and wait for G4 to find a big charm to start the fight. And if Buriram go for those slower team fights, match EVOS front to back, they're going to be in trouble.
But I'm super concerned for Cat sitting here, TJ, because there's no easy target for BRE to go for, except for this Varus, probably. I mean, you can't really lock down G4. Your Tipper is hard to lock down as well. Valdez and Rich are tanky, so Cat Satan just seems like the de facto target after that.
I'll tell you the good news, though. Buriram aren't a very aggressive team. And, you know, this is why I made a reference earlier to a Vietnamese region team who I think would be creating a ton of trouble for Cat Satan. But Buriram tend to play fairly respectful outside of lanes. And the dive that they've drafted is very front to back. If you look at Shiba, if you look at Noel, if you look at Supporter, who are all the characters who can go in, they need to get past this Nunu in order to access backline.
Well, they don't have to get past the Nunu if G4 is going to dash up in front of him. Easy pick up there for BRU, and, well, it's a very nice bait. Look at how long they were waiting to brush that, TJ.
Yeah. I don't know if it's crazier that that worked, or crazier that they tried it. Buriram just stay in the top lane for 2 actual minutes to see what happens.
Hey, it works out, so the result pans out well for them over to the back. They have to deal with Tipper coming in now, locking down Kinemon, who's gone golden, trying to buy some time. Killer instant reposition to the back, but they still need to deal with Valdez. It's difficult because you have the Kaisa with the Camille chasing after, taking him down. Shiba returns one, but it's a marksman gone. Noel joins in the fight with the flag and drag, but Rich is right around the corner, still far enough away. Flashes on top of the hunting brute, but won't be able to get it in time to get a return kill there.
And you see what EVOS' teamfight wants to look like there on their initial engage. A really good sync-up, particularly of the Hextech ultimatum out of Thipper and Valdez's Absolute Zero, because you can lock people into the AoE of the Nunu. So EVOS have a really good teamfight, but Buriram haven't had to face it front to back. There they get a little bit of a weird reset where Cat Satan and G4 are completely split for the front line of Rich, Valdez, and Thipper. And Buriram are just able to get Noel into the gap. And pay attention to that, because that's, of course, how Noel won the last game for Buriram, is his ability on Jarvan in particular to be that secondary tank, to be that secondary support, and worm his way into the middle of teamfights, splitting EVOS' line.
And we're kind of seeing exactly why Camille has been so highly banned in a lot of these games, because of how effective it is at dealing with these marksmen that are rotating around the map. I say that, but look at that, they're going on to Valdez once again. You talk about how they have to get past this Nunu well. They're looking to invalidate him from the beginning. Absolute Zero comes across. Look at how much he's healed up. Noel trying to buy time, trying to draw attention away from the rest of his team. Rich has gone down in that process. BRU will find one and unable to take down Noel.
You do again see, you can't get past Valdez. G4, Cat Satan can just sit behind it. But you also again see Buriram working around that restriction, finding Rich at the very side of the team fight.
Oh, that's a nice taunt. That might be able to find Tipper here. Okay, Tipper is going to go golden. He buys some time. He has to catch the ultimate, so God could dodge away from a decent amount of damage. Captain Rain comes across. There we have it. The Camille ultimate committed to try and dodge away, but still will go down.
An excellent use of the Hextech ultimatum, but here comes G4.
Kind of doing doom and gloom for EVOS Esports, because you've already lost 2 and now looking to lose G4 as well. Nice damage to return back. They are unable to take down the 2 carries from EVOS Esports.
Heroic from Valdez to save the life of Cat Satan, to save the life of G4 there. But without Thipper in these fights, oh my god. Without Thipper in these fights, you're going to see a lot of Buriram members get very low and no Buriram members die. This is why Varus Ziggs is very popular, because the Varus can knock people low and the Ziggs can very reliably finish them off. But without a Ziggs or something that get over the top of the front line in this team fight, you're relying on G4 and Thipper to finish off people that are getting poked by Cat Satan. And we're seeing EVOS really struggle to execute on that. They're really struggling to find the synced up team fight that operates like that, where Cat Satan can poke in over the top of Valdez, and then Thipper can go in and clean up those kills. During that fight, I think Archony, Kinemon, and Noel all went down to like 1 HP and just left, just walked away, because they weren't under serious pressure from EVOS.
And what we've kind of been focusing around these skirmishes, Buriram United have found themselves 3 dragons during this time, and maybe collecting a life from Noel as well. Being locked down by the Hextech Ultimatum is a death sentence for this Javan, who's put Tipper in a cage of his own as well. The turret's still coming in. The last one will not come across. Tipper will survive.
That was a second away.
Ooh, no flash committed either.
Nerves of steel. Good catch, Grandin. Thipper did in fact have his flash there, and he opted not to flash out. He was confident he would survive. And that is incredible. Players knowing those kinds of timings.
Honestly, just, wow. Impressive stuff that we're seeing from Evils right now. And, well, I mean, they get to play against each other so much in their own region, in their own Icon series. Going back into this one, I mean, there was some expectations there for Evils Esports to just run away with the game, but BRU have come in bigger. I know Omo has been kind of preaching to the choir about how BRU is such a good team. And I think we're seeing that in this series as well.
I mean, this matchup did go very late regionally. Both these teams are incredibly good and incredibly closely matched. I want to talk about this late game, because we do have a couple of advantages for Buriram. I've talked a lot about the win condition, the kind of fight EVOS want to take. Buriram do have a couple of things going for them, and one of them is this. Thipper being really strong in the side lane. It's always going to be hard to catch the Camille. You can see them trying to do this now. And Buriram have to devote so many resources to trying to slow that play down. The other thing that's going to be going on in this late game is Buriram have Archony, who can just shred turrets. So if EVOS ever make a mistake in their map rotations, turrets are just going to vanish.
Looking at a good amount of poke from EVOS Esports here, though. They're really putting the pressure, piling it on BRU. Like you mentioned, while they may be able to take turrets where they find these windows, EVOS Esports, well, it just seems like the macro is looking better. They pulled Noel into the mid lane, and as a result of that, Tipper has collected that bot side turret.
Yeah, this is what's known as a 4-1 strategy, where you have 4 players playing in mid and 1 player playing in the side lanes. And EVOS executed perfectly. They're holding their mid turret, and they've got Thipper just poking it around the side. You can do this very easily with Camille. You also see it with Twisted Fate, and occasionally you'll see something like a Jarvan try and execute this as well, but obviously you need the teleport spell to do that. The big reason that Camille can do it, Fiora can do it, is because they have so much built-in mobility in their kits, so it's very difficult to punish them because they can always run away if they realize that there's people coming in on them.
Next dragon comes up, it's that Elder Cloud Drake, not Air Drake. Gotta be specific, especially with TJ here.
Yeah.
So don't want to get called out for it. And Buriram United, they're onto that 3rd Drake already. They get this 4th one. I mean, they've been able to maintain control on neutral objectives despite the Nunu.
If Buriram get this, it would give them so much true damage that I think they would just win this game. So they very, very badly need this Elder Drake. And they're going to start trying to position around it, because I think they're also aware that EVOS have this really good late game team fight, this really good late game 4-1 split push setup. It's scary for Buriram right now. This Elder Drake represents their best chance of winning this game. So they're committing to starting it.
Tipper's not even in this fight, TJ.
Yeah, Tipper's all the way up in the top lane. He doesn't have a teleport. Valdez doesn't have vision.
Oh no, he jumps in. Is this going to be enough though? Coming in with the heroic entrance to get some good knockdown. G4 is going to flash over the wall, get away in time. In the meantime, Archly will find a tower in the mid lane. Tipper split pushing, but they're onto the Elder Drake.
And Valdez is still in the area. This is warded.
They have to block this. They have to stop this G4 coming back in to get a killing spree. It's Kinemon that comes in big, comes in clutch. They're back onto the dragon, but it's going to be the inhibitor traded away. We'll have to see how much more Tipper's able to find. Valdez flashes forward, but he's stuck right by the side of the wall. Won't be able to steal it. And BRU find it. Fourth dragon with supporter. Buying more time, buying more space. Over by the side. Might be able to take down Cat Satan. He's drawing attention away. You have to worry about Tipper. He's moving on to the Nexus, but it's gone back in time, stalled out enough, bought enough space, as Shiba flashes onto the Camille to take him down as well.
EVOS don't feel comfortable stepping into that team fight, so they play through the split lane strategy. They try and extend the dragon fight itself while they push in the sideline, while they use Thipper to their advantage. But Buriram match them. They outplay them every step of the way on the dragon fight. Noel going over the wall to back up Kinemon and dropping a Cataclysm on top of Valdez meant that Valdez had to flash out of the Cataclysm, and he couldn't flash over the wall into the dragon pit, and Buriram got the dragon uncontested thanks to that movement, thanks to that brilliant play from Noel, who now has won 2 games in a row off of his late game, just individual skill play on this tank Jarvan. I say one because Buriram with that Elder should have the game in the bag. EVOS will not have enough damage to match these team fights unless they play them perfectly. Front to back, Cat Satan, G4 behind Valdez, throwing out damage. That is the only way EVOS can win these late game team fights.
And it's up to BRU to now put on the pressure. They got the Baron. They just have to apply it onto Evil's Esports. Bring the fight to them. There's an inside track available for Tipper. Unfortunately, it's going to be too difficult to maintain that, as BRU have identified that as a potential weakness. Look at where they're set up here, TJ. They're waiting for Evil's Esports to overstep and for Shiba to refine his entry.
Here we go. Pressure into the side lanes. These turrets melting under the gaze of Archony.
Oh! Ooh.
Wow!
He might just get one shot.
That's
Coming
the
in, they managed to
Elder.
find the first catch on the G4, looking to take down Valdez, who's not going to be enough. He's just a
That's the
lone noodle.
game.
He's tanky, but he's not going to be able to stop them from sieging into the base.
And once again, Buriram, with a late game objective fight, have turned the game, have won the game.
They have to take down Kinemon. This is their only shot, the only chance, but it's not enough. And BRU take 2 games back-to-back.
2-0 up in this series for Buriram, who forever have been in second place in the Tide Regional Finals. And now they stand 1 game away from clean sweeping their regional rivals, clean sweeping EVOS, who are, as of note, the best team in Southeast Asia, the reigning Summer Super Cup champions. This would be a massive win for Buriram.
We're starting to see that group stage power here, TG. The fact is, they came in here and were able to win, come in first in their groups, and they're showcasing that to us right now. I'm loving the form from BRU, and it's so impressive as well.
That game was so close. It came down to that one dragon fight, the split lane that was being generated off of it by Thipper, and Thipper just can't quite get onto the Nexus in time. Buriram masterfully play around the dragon. This is just the highest level Wild Rift we've seen yet at this tournament. And of course, neither of these teams are out of the tournament if they lose it. We could see a rematch yet again of this rematch of the Tide Regional Finals, as the loser of this goes down to the lower bracket and can still fight their way back into the Grand Finals.
Absolutely. It's revenge from BRU as they lead the series 2-0. We're going to go for a quick little break. When we come back, well, what more can I say? Match point for Buriram United.
Match point!
was blown away, at loss for words. Couldn't figure out just what to say. The other day, when I saw you, on and on, my head is spinning round and round in circles, thinking of you. Losing my direction when I'm with you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning around for you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning around for you. My head is spinning round. When you say my name, I look away, trying to be cool and find a way that I can stay a little late. On and on, my head is spinning round and round in circles, thinking of you. Losing my direction when I'm with you. When I'm with you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning round, I'm thinking of you. My head is spinning round.
Welcome back to the C Championships, where Buriram United Esports have taken Game 2 against Eva's Esports. Now my predictions are shaking. Now I'm like, oh no! Did we just curse actually Eva's Esports by doing that? You guys know the power that is invested in this, analyst desk over here. But I have to say, looking really good for Buriram United Esports, and again, pleasantly surprised by this team every single step of the way. Coming from the last chance qualifiers coming from the play-ins even, coming into the group stages, they just keep on upping their game. Although it was a really close game. Let's jump into our post-game thoughts right now. We'll start with you, Riku. And you mentioned earlier how this is gonna go into open bases and no turrets, and it's gonna be that close. And I think this game delivered.
Yeah, it feels like it's going through the route again of what happened during the grand finale, and I think it took a little bit of that U-turn because it is Buriram now having that match point, and it all boiled down again. We talked about actually Kinemon and Cat Satan are going to be continuously swapping the carries. It is always the constant that's going to be Kai'Sa and as well as possibly Xayah Rakan and maybe the Kai'Sa Corki matchup, but it's just so, I suppose, uncharacteristic, I suppose, because Cat Satan now on this Varus, which isn't exactly going to match the firepower come late game up against Kinemon on the Kai'Sa. So right now we're seeing this trend from Buriram where they're putting all their eggs in one basket, which is Kinemon on this very amazing 5v5 composition. And again, for EVOS, it really boggles my mind how Valdez is such an amazing jungler, but is on a Nunu. Like, you'd expect him to play all of these flashy junglers, assassins even perhaps, or late game scaling like the Fiora, like the Camille, but on a tank, on a Nunu. So basically it feels like he's not in the picture, he's not on the equation anymore in this current fight, in the previous fight rather.
Yeah, we've certainly seen some success from, you know, Nunu in the jungle from other teams or anything, but I have to say, Valdez, it seemed like you said this best, Riku, it didn't fit his playstyle. It was like, it's not working. EVOS Exile didn't exactly know how to play around it, and that's a champion that, you know, you really need to revolve your own strategy around. Skimmy, what do you think? What did you think about Valdez and the Nunu?
I think Nunu's one of those champions that you either love it or you hate it, right? It's certainly a champion that offers a whole bunch, but I think Buriram did a phenomenal job of managing its impact in the game. Not a single Drake or a Baron. You're thinking this is a champion designed to contest and make those 50-50s far more like a 70-30 in their favor. He never got a chance to actually get into the area to contest that. We'll bring up some highlights because there's some pretty interesting plays for me throughout that game, which could have really made it really either way. I mean, we're looking here originally. I'm a big fan of Fipper. I think when he gets a chance to play these carries, this is the reason they pick him Camille first pick. Beautiful Hexic Ultimatum, travels through space and time, says nice flag and drag, I'll come along for the ride, takes him out. Now look at this. I tell you what, if I ever want a bit of confidence in my life, I wish to be as confident as him, because he doesn't flash, he says, that turret isn't going to kill me, who cares? Now look at this one. We're going to start with the perspective of Fipper. He's playing for the back door. But look at Noel, maybe the best J4 performance I've ever seen, because he's going to jump in, zone away once again, this Nunu. He's got flash. You're thinking he's going to flash into the pit, steal away. No, not going to happen. Cataclysm, you flashed away. Oh, wait, I can't do anything. I can't contest. Another dragon lost. Now it becomes a case of buying time to stop the recalls. Look at the minimap. You can see that Camille was going for the end, but they can't stop. They have no flashes. They have no dashes. Their bot lane's already dead and gone. So they have no way to allow Fipper to go for this backdoor play. So we switch perspective back to him. He's looking to try and do this all on his own. He's hoping that his team can buy him some time. He works his way to this Nexus, bringing in the minions to make it a little bit easier for him to do so. But look, those recalls just mean it's not possible anymore. 3 members get back, you're locked in place, you're forced to run away. The whole squad's there. And you can be as good as you like with these mechanics, but you just don't have a team that can, bail you out and make this a 1-for-1. So these games are being very, very close. 2-0 scoreline doesn't really do it justice, but Buriram are playing really well right now.
They are indeed.
Yeah,
and go ahead, Riku.
Yeah, it's like a big callback, right, to the grand finals. Even though EVOS Esports scored the 4-1 up against BRU, all of those games except for one has been, 3 to 2k goal deficit, and would eventually balloon up only during the last team fight to end the game. So this is what we are expecting. It has been incredibly close every single time. And yeah, I feel like the Jarvan 4 has been creating this impact, even though, let's just say, we get to see Noel on something that is more of that tank. He still is able to create such a huge impact, and that zoning from the Cataclysm is just really, really good.
Yeah, and previously when we had an interview with Buriram supporter, I believe it was, and we were asking them, what did you guys have for breakfast? And they didn't want to reveal it yet. They were like, oh no, we'll save it for the playoffs. You know, we got to think about our answer. I think we got it though. I think they're getting a daily dose of esports at One Esports GG, the home of esports heroes. Check them out on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Yes, indeed. All day, every day. All day,
How
every day.
nutritious is it? Can you tell us? Is this a 5-star health rating? You know,
Yes.
You consume esports for breakfast?
Yes, actually you can. There's a wide variety of it.
Oh.
You have, different tastes in terms of esports titles. It is very nutritious in the world of esports and gaming. So yes, you can just consume it all in one pack. And I think that's what Bariram United Esports do every single day because they are looking good indeed. There is something though that I wanted to ask you guys. We brought this up behind the scenes as we're ending Champ Select over here. There is a question of the support difference indeed. You're talking about supporter earlier.
yeah.
He's been doing oh so good. Rich, on the other hand, they have been forcing the Gragas pick. I mean, Skimmy, what are your thoughts on that?
Not a fan. Not a fan. I mean, one game, it didn't look too impressive. Perhaps choked a little bit in some of those clutch moments, but he could have held his own. Second game, still felt like a bit of a passenger along for the ride. Would love to see him switch things up. I mean, the Rakan is there if you want to sort of still be that engaged, heavy support. Obviously, doesn't give you displacement, but a same overarching theme, right, of turning the tide of that fight. If not, just default back to those enchanters. Draft something strong here for Cat Satan to pop off with. Play the Nami, play the Lulu, play the Janna, whatever it may be. Because the Gragas right now doesn't seem to be it. So I would be mortified if they run it back and lock it in again.
Yes. Sorry, it's finally, we were talking about this off cast, right? That maybe perhaps don't prioritize the Camille, get the Galio for yourself because you can put it on G4. Remember, we mentioned this before. If the mid laners are doing so well as carries, as assassins, you relegate them to tank. G4 performed so well every single time he has held this Galio, even during the Summer Super Cup when they went up against one team. It was their game-winning engage and the champion-winning fight. Now, Bariram, on the other hand, going for this Orianna, so I'm not going to be surprised if Shiba goes for a Rengar with the cat ball composition where they can sneakily set up the shockwaves for BRU.
Yeah, would make sense. And it's also another denial, right, of that Camille, given that Fippa is playing out of his mind right now. So Evos are going to have to think, okay, if the Rengar is a threat, what do we take to try and match it? Okay, well, I guess we're just going to see ourselves a support Galio if we're going to run it back with a third game of this Ahri. He's just so keen to get these picks and maybe a little bit uncharacteristic in that second game there, the scoreline and he was down 5k in comparison in this mid lane. So really needs to try and find some form in a crucial moment.
Yeah, so I think the biggest question is, the Ahri is the key here, just because, Bariram United always having to rely on Kinemon for that late game, so it's going to be G4's job to eliminate that big threat. So now Bariram, curious if this is going to be a Lulu Cat Satan, or supporter Lulu, as we haven't really seen the Kai'Sa Lulu combo just yet. And Gragas is still open for the taking. It could be just a swap of support picks so far. And there it is, the Valdez Fiora. We've been waiting for it, and it has arrived if it is going to be locked in. So the scaling jungler now for the side of Valdez and the possible 1-3-1 setup during the later phases of the game. But don't let that fool you. Evos would still love to fight the early 5v5s, especially now we're going to get the classic 2v2 matchup, or 1v1 2v2 matchup at the duo lane, which is the Corki versus the Kai'Sa. We'll see if supporter will go Gragas.
That is the big question in my mind right now. What do they look to try and lock in place to break up the party? Perhaps the comeback material for a reverse sweep that Evos would be so desperate for. Will it be, as you say, one of those bruises, or is it going to be more of the Lulu? Yeah, I like it. I mean, it basically says you've got one goal in mind, hit a charm, hit a hook, or hit any kind of bleed, and blow up that one key target. A wild growth from Lulu nullifies all of that. So I'm liking what Bariram are running back here for game 3.
Just immediately pile growth, ensure that survives and sustains himself as much as he can. And therefore, the 4-minute mark, fight 5v5 is still available. And I gotta say though, Bariram has this comp in the bag. Evos Esports, though, they have to get a pick. G4 has to find those charms to make sure that they can enable the big 4v5 come the objective fights.
Now, before we step into the game, we did talk about that Lulu pick a little earlier. This looks like a little bit of I wouldn't say like an omen or something, but a little bit of a message as well, because the only game I feel like Bariram took from, if I remember correctly, from Evos Esports in the grand final, they did bring out the Lulu. Although Evos Esports, yes, they are very adept at the whole Lulu draft as well.
Yeah.
What do you think would have gone on there? I mean, while we're speculating before we step into the game, Bariram United, was this kind of like, okay, we know this happened before, we're gonna do it again, and then we're gonna get the 3-0. I feel like that's such a powerful statement. That might be something that they're alluding to over here.
Yeah, I remember it was, you mentioned Mika, it was the game that they won, and it was because of a Rift Herald fight, 5v5. Kinemon immediately got the wild growth, immediately got 3 kills, and basically was able to get control throughout the game. So maybe BRU wants to finish this 3-0, wants to get Kinemon getting the early kills, and then basically repeat what happened during the grand finals game.
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen that Kaiser Corki matchup in this series alone, right? And it was so close. All three, we don't even know yet. All 2 games so far have been super, super close. So that does seem to be the sort of the difference maker here of looking to try and snowball these games and saying that, hey, if you're jumping in, you've got a wild growth, play like a madman. Play like you are absolutely possessed, that you're hunting for these kills, that you can be crazy in your approach to these team fights because you've got that backup. And it's not all to say that you have to make these plays on your own, because, you know, if he does eventually fall on down, they have so many threats elsewhere that can look to try and pick up the slack once he's fallen down. So I think they've got a really strong comp. I'm just a big fan of this J4 once again. It just feels like Buriram have played the same comp every game so far. They're warmed up, they know what their objective is, and it's just been a case of shutting down that side lanes, which they've done game 1, they've done it in game 2, and I would be terrified if I'm EVOS right now, thinking we've had to make these big adjustments, and you're just hoping that it's enough that you don't get embarrassed.
Yeah, and I kind of want to reflect on Buriram United's journey over here, because we kind of like, I'll admit, you know, all of the predictions were kind of like favoring EVOS over here. And it's because we were like, okay, they had a great run. Wow, last chance qualifiers. Okay, doing really good in the group stages. And you're like in the playoffs, okay, surely this is time for EVOS Esports to shine. Surely this is time for SBTC Esports to shine. But I gotta say, they're looking really clean. They're looking very confident, and it's funny how we can see this even, you know, through the game. EVOS Esports, we did see them buckle quite a bit, and you know, you see Buriram United, they are chill, they're smiling, they're having a good time. I mean, I've actually feel like I have a gut feeling this could be a 3-0. And you know, Rico, we were talking about how Buriram was always, you know, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Do you think this is their time here in the playoffs?
It's looking really like the scenario. This is looking to be a possible 3-0. The way that they have been cleanly fighting these 5v5s time and time again is looking pretty scary for EVOS Esports. And I think the biggest takeaway, the biggest key is, again, G4 being able to get picks and always having to find the opportunities to find basically Kinemon on the other side to allow that space for them to win these fights. And so far, it hasn't been panning out too well, but he has been spamming this Ahri pick constantly, and we'll see if the charm will indeed hit.
Yeah, I think he needs to get big. I think this is a game that you have to really sharp or go home, because you can't expect one player to try and carry all the slack in this game. I mean, we were critical of Rich. They've made that adjustment. They're going to get the Galio support this time around, so that might be the difference that they need to try and even out and stabilize the bottom lane for Cat Satan to be that monster as a Corki. They're going to need to have that reliability in Fippa again to pop off and stay strong as a Darius, but more so, I'm looking at that mid lane again for G4. Finished that last game 0-2-2, down 6k in comparison to Archony and the Ziggs. I mean, this is G4 Ahri. Like, this is what you would associate as him. This is the pick. So needs a very big performance this game, because these games have been super close, but it feels like as these games have been going on, they're flipping the match and saying, okay, we're just going to take a team fight, see what happens. Let's see. Let's just take that skill check. And whilst the gold leads have been sometimes 2 to 3k, there's never been a blowout, right? Like of 10 to 20k. So whilst it looks like it could be a 3-0 for Buriram, I certainly feel like EVOS can come back into the series, and it has to start with this game here. Otherwise, you're going to be walking away from this series, not necessarily tilted, but upset you didn't truly show up.
Yeah. And then we're gonna see that rematch of the Summer Super Cup Grand Finals in the lower bracket, which could be, you know, one team and EVOS Esports once again at it again. But you know, Skimmy, I did want to ask you. We brought this up previously, I believe, in yesterday's panel, with regards to, you know, EVOS Esports. We do have, okay, they have J4, they have Lloyd over there, and these are really the big brains. They have that experience, they have that veteranship coming in here for the side of EVOS Esports. But we did sort of like bring up the question of whether EVOS Esports was kind of stuck in their own meta. They don't seem to be a team that can adapt on the fly very, very quickly. What are your thoughts on this?
Hard to say. I mean, the Corki is the most glaringly obvious pick. Corki doesn't seem to be the go-to right now in this fast-paced meta where the priority has been Ziggs and Varus to get the ball rolling nice and early. We've sort of faded away from the Zarya focus, which a lot of us were critical at times, right? A lot of these champions that take time to scale on through and become a bit of a powerhouse, that sort of insurance policy late game. But you know, you're looking at a lot of these really strong competitors in this tournament, and they are picking those champions that will win lane and then will just win game, right? They actually can translate that early game statement into something. So if you're banking on, okay, we're just going to flip this game at 30 minutes, this is why I say this really could be a reverse sweep. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Freo, because if you're banking or hedging your bets completely on those like 30-minute team fights where respawn times become too much, like anything really can happen. So I suppose if there's ever a time for you to be stuck in your own meta, it probably is a mirror matchup from your own region where you are both stuck in the same ways, perhaps. A different region may have had a better approach to this, but yeah, I think EVOS will certainly be saying these are our picks, this is our identity. I'm not going to be too upset about, you know, running it back with this one, but we've already seen what the Corki can do if it gets a lead early, so if they can look to try and bridge that gap as well, then we could be running it back with some more quads and pentas.
Yeah, I think that's 100% a possibility. I mean, during the grand finals, we've seen Cat Satan basically, 1v4 as a Corki around the Baron pit. And I feel like he can definitely do that again. You know, usually when I look at the Kai'Sa Corki matchup, especially towards the late game, I heavily lean towards consistent and sustained damage with the auto attacks with the Kai'Sa versus the Corki. But when I look at it in a Kinemon versus Cat Satan perspective, I have to hand it to the Corki this time around, just because all of those things will hit, even though these two teams fight at open spaces. For some reason, Kinemon and Cat Satan, when they're on a Corki, they really make every single hit count. And I'm just really definitely worried for sure when it comes to Kinemon this time around versus this Corki pick with Cat Satan.
Interesting. Now, as you notice on your upper left, right, I mean, it gets confusing when it's online. Yeah, we do have a technical pause. We are just finishing. I'm not sure where you guys are. Where is it on your screens?
We get
like,
duped by the opposite sides, right? So I'm pointing up there.
It's here. It's here on my end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Over there. Right over there.
It's over there somewhere.
Technical
Riku's gonna
pause.
grab it down.
And she actually does. We are just fixing some issues before we step into the final game.
Oh,
so
you actually took it away. Oh, too much
Whoa,
power, Riku.
you're welcome.
Unbelievable.
I'm legit impressed. Wait, I wasn't expecting that.
It actually happened.
I'm actually shocked. What'd you do? Oh my gosh, Riku, I believe in your power right now. I am such a believer. That was amazing. Thanks so much, Riku. Well, thanks to Riku, we are now about to step into Game 3. Casters, take it away.
Riku's a mime with the power to fix this stream, Grafton. I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do either. I'm just gonna pretend like, you know, this is an entire Riku show. She's not the one running things from the background, the Shadow Overlord, because we're going into game number 3. It's the third game in this set, and BRU are leading 2-0 TJ. Who would have thunk it?
I mean, I would
Some
have
people
thought
would have.
that it was
It's a close series.
I wouldn't have said Buriram would be up 2-0, and if they clean sweep this series, it will be an upset, to be clear. But this was also supposed to be a very close series. Let's talk about this game 3, and we can talk about why I think EVOS actually are going to make this series keep going. It's what you're seeing right now. It's G4 in the middle of the map. He is the early game for EVOS. He's kind of the only early game on the map. And if you're an EVOS fan, you want to see G4 take this Ahri and get into lane with it. Shut down Kinemon, especially shut down Archony. That's why they put Archony down in the bottom lane, so that he doesn't just get bullied by this Ahri.
Pulling attention away from, well, just having G4 kind of crush Archony in the mid lane, you know, they're trying to funnel Kinemon up again. And it feels like EVOS Esports has doubled back a little bit to the similar idea that they did in game number 1, where they bring Cat Satan back on a big carry here.
Yeah, I mean, we have a late game that probably bends towards Buriram, because unlike game number 1, there isn't the same just turbo tank frontline for Cat Satan. So late game probably bends back towards Buriram because they have both Kinemon and Archony, who are incredible team fighting mages and AD carries in the late game, whereas EVOS, okay.
I mean, these charms have just been so on point, TJ.
He needs
2
the
for 2,
kills,
and
though.
Kinemon's put low to start. You see the rotation coming through. Rich is right there as well. Supporter will block him though.
Right, so Buriram probably win like the hyper late game though. That's like post 20 minutes if they can get that.
But they got this early game. They got G4 and they're making it happen in the mid side. Veldus comes in, dashes in with the mid post. Won't need it. It's still first blood for EVOS Esports.
There it is. Exactly what EVOS needed to do to start this game, because that's the caveat. If Buriram get post 20 minutes, they get Orianna, they get Kai'Sa online, they have this Lulu plus the Jarvan tank from the top line, I think they probably win this game. But EVOS have the tools to roll this game during the first 20 minutes. And if they put Buriram behind, then Buriram don't actually have a very good team to fight from behind. Because Orianna doesn't do enough sustained damage to be relevant if she's not able to really hurt people with her shockwave. If this Orianna falls behind, it's going to be a very long time till her shockwave, till her sustain is actually hurting people in a way that's not true for, say, a Ziggs. And when you're talking about supporter, when you're talking about the Lulu, if the Lulu is amping people up with wild growth and they're not able to capitalize on that, Lulu's basically not a champion. Lulu's not adding any value. If you spend the wild growth and it doesn't result in a one-team fight, then you would have been better off having a tank who could take those hits in the front line. So Buriram are in trouble if EVOS start this game with a strong lead. They've already got first blood. Let's see what else they can do in the first kind of 10-15 minutes.
And DJ, that's kind of the trap that a lot of teams fall into when they play for a supportive and Chandler type support as well as a mage kind of bot side, right? It's the idea that, hey, we just make it out of laning phase, even things will be okay. But then they kind of neglect to see, like, well, what's the overall map state? Because they have a couple of champions that can still dive you, if they get ahead instead. And so it's important to, across the map, to also make sure Tipper and Veldus just aren't running away with the game.
Yeah. And you also, I think, specifically with Lulu, she's so reliant on other people being able to follow up on what she's doing, right? If you polymorph someone, that's great. But if nobody dies as a result of that polymorph because your team doesn't have enough damage, then I don't know, it's not even a very effective form of CC. They can still move around. So there's a very distinct onus on Buriram to do exactly what they're doing and try and contest the early game. I wouldn't be going for a fight here, but they're doing a good job being here.
They start things off with that polymorph, but like you mentioned, you don't have the damage to take anybody down, then what does it matter? They jump in either way. Shiba's come in big with the Cataclysm blocking off EVOS Esports. They're unable to dive them deeper in the jungle, but you still have to deal with Tipper, who've come in with the first knockup. You still have Noel, but he's playing a tanky Java, not that much damage, cannot take them down. 2 more to EVOS.
And there's the EVOS early game they needed. It was a little dicey. Noel went a little hard. It was dangerous. But Veldus manages to clean up the Rift Herald. EVOS win the team fight. They've got 2,000 in the bank as the lead, and that lead is going to grow once they throw down the Rift Herald. This is what they need to do. This is a very strong start for EVOS.
Very strong start indeed, and this is exactly the doomsday scenario for BRU. I mean, we talked about it so much in the early game. If they're allowing them to get ahead, we saw what happened with Kitamon as well. I mean, we don't even have to think so much about the others, just Catshade, and he's already coming for 1 full item.
Yeah, and do a little gold comparison in the mid lane as well. And look at what happened to Archony, because he was stuck down in the bottom lane with slower farm, not able to get out into the early fights as well, dying in the early fights. Or not dying, sorry, getting forced out of the early fights by the focus. And that means that he essentially died in the early fights and didn't get any credit for anything. They didn't find any kills. And he's broke. He's like me, Grandin.
That's not entirely true, TJ. Well, we'll see if EVOS Esports are able to get a little bit more gold line in their pockets. They find the charge in the bomb site with the Rift Tower, a little bit more localized gold there, and a good response from BRU. But look at EVOS still stepping aggressively here, though.
Now watch this dance round the side. If we see big CC from Rich, if he finds big, stun.
What are they looking to try and go for? I mean, it's the re-engage. Rich finds him with a 2-man taunt to boot. They take him down, supported first, but they've locked down G4. He's stuck on the turret, but you're stuck in there with EVOS Esports, who found 2 there as well.
Can Noel save the turret? No. Now he's in trouble.
Absolutely in trouble here, TJ. Noel's gonna have to face off against Veldus, against Tipper, who have become massive in this game. It's doom and gloom for BRU in game number 3 as EVOS go 6-1.
Rich just sits there at the recall, knowing his team's got it. I'm the support. I don't want to take the kill, he says. Kills will go over to EVOS. A little bit sloppy that G4 died. If I'm giving notes, if I'm being real critical, G4 shouldn't have been in position to get shut down. It was very well played by Shiba to get that kill. And of course, because that took so long, there was a trade. And this top lane turret did fall. I believe that gold mostly went on to Kinemon, which is very good state of affairs. Buriram really want Kinemon to be a carry, so it's not all bad. But I also don't want to paint that as an even trade, because it was really bad for Buriram. EVOS continuing to accelerate their early game. They get the first turret kill, and they grow this kill lead drastically. They're going to be so far ahead for the next 10 minutes easily. And if Buriram want to come back into this game, they need to either find a miracle fight, or make this game somehow last 20 minutes and come back at death's door with a beautiful team fight, Orianna, Shockwave, everything goes wrong.
And EVOS Esports continue on with the tempo, continue with the pressure to get the mid lane turret. And I mean, while we're doing a stock take on everything, you look at EVOS Esports. They got the Rift Tower, they got the Cloud Drake. Granted, for BRU, this is probably the least impactful dragon to lose, but it still hurts them. And EVOS Esports, well, they've just been able to run away with this early game. And for a team that's really only had this one early game champion in G4, they're doing a lot with it. Now here we have it again. Rich has come in and given Veldis a killing streak. Put this guy on a scholarship, honestly.
Oh my god. Shiba will be in trouble here as well as Veldis, Rich, and G4 stay in the area. They're not even needed. Wow.
TJ, I can't tell if you're impressed or unimpressed. I mean, what's happening here? What's going on in your head right now?
It's just working. It's just EVOS have showed up to work, and
You're
they're
chugging
doing
along.
the job. You know, there are some people that are really standout performers. You're like, wow, you're going above and beyond. EVOS aren't doing that. I'm not going to lie. They're showing up to work on time. Not early, but on time. They're doing the job they're required to do, and that's going to get them the game unless Buriram do something absolutely remarkable. The only place I even see that happening is maybe Kinemon just goes huge. But failing Kinemon getting a pentakill, this game's pretty much over.
Yeah, and this was the team that we were looking towards. I mean, both of them have the best players in the world in their respective positions. And it just seems like EVOS Esports have finally come online. They've woken up the idea. They're coming back in and go take down Noel.
This is the first draft I liked from EVOS. This is the first time we left the draft, and I was like, oh wow, I think this is really in EVOS's wheelhouse to execute this game. Because playing through G4, okay.
I mean, 10-1 at this point. It looks like every fight that you take, you're gonna lose. BRU wills to commit that. Shockwave comes across, but Cat Satan takes
Doesn't
virtually
even
no
notice.
damage from it.
Yeah. And that's what I meant by Orianna's pretty worthless if she's behind. And this game was just, hey, we're going to play through G4's early game. We're going to play through the fact that he can land charms, Rich can find engage. And if you're telling me, hey, our game plan for EVOS is that G4 finds charms and Rich finds engage, that's a pretty good game plan. That's a game plan I'll sign on to any day of the week. Whereas previously, it was a lot on Cat Satan winning fights, Cat Satan being the key carry of this team. And that's not been how EVOS have played historically. Cat Satan's always been an element of the team, but he's been an insurance policy. So the earlier two games where EVOS were relying on him to take over the game and carry it felt a little bit uncomfortable to me.
Well, goodbye, Noel. I mean, he tries to get away, but
That's
will fall to
horrific.
Tipper
That's what that
eventually. This is revenge of the Baron lane. Tipper's had a rough first two games, while the third one, it's not going to be the same here, TJ. And, well, very frankly, I have to say, you know, what feels like the difference to me is Supporter being on this Lulu.
Yeah, I'm not a giant fan of Lulu into this draft, but they needed. Okay.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm just giving it to you. They finally find something back. They take down Veldis here. But is this going to be enough to pull them back in, to hold them until that 20-minute mark?
No. Sorry, was that rhetorical, or was I supposed to answer that?
I would take the answer, yeah. That's a nice four-man calculus when they come across though with the Flag and Drag as well, but he'd lack the damage to follow through with. They've taken down Sheba and Archer, and he's not even alive for these fights, man.
It's like watching cheese run into a grater, you know? There's just nothing that's gonna happen. I don't know what the expected result is. The cheese gets grated.
I love that expression, TJ. Can I use it for my next fight? Alright, there we have it. While EVOS Esports, they're going to stop the Baron now, but it's looking a little bit risky. They're dropping down low quickly. And they don't have a Lulu or anybody off the light to keep them topped up, so they're going to back away. BRU, at the very least, still holding on to their chances for this game. It's 11 minutes in, almost 12. It's 15 to 2, 12,000 ahead for Evos.
And I want to kind of use this game as a data point, because a lot of the time people will come into streams like this and they'll be like, what? This game isn't close. This team must be terrible. Okay. 2v3. Can they do it?
Well, they're gonna run away because they know Rich is right around the corner as well. They hit a block this. They're gonna get the taunt. Misses it. Nice dash away from the survivors of BRU here.
Okay, so a lot of times people look at scorelines like this and they make very negative judgments. Buriram are really good, and I don't even think their draft this game is especially bad. It's just that they pinned the entire game on G4 and Rich not dominating the early game, on G4 and Rich not snowballing early leads into Valdez, into Cat Satan. And Evos were able to execute on. So even though this game looks really one-sided, it came down to a very even, 50% odds of can G4 execute this really aggressive thing? Can he find early kills? And the answer was yes, but that's player play. This isn't a game that was lost in draft. This isn't a game that is a telling story of Buriram being much worse. Like, that's not what's going on here. This is actually two teams drafting reasonable drafts and playing very hard, and Evos just being able to execute on some remarkable early aggression, as they had to win this game.
And it's turned out well for Evos Esports. They invested heavily in this third game draft, and well, it looks like they've been able to execute it well enough. They find a catch on the Shiva, who's had to flash away, committed that summoner spell. Nice shockwave, disengages for the rest of the team, but BRU still playing on their back foot.
Yeah, I'm a little worried for Evos, like in the back of my mind. I'm thinking about the timer, because you can see Kinemon's damage is like coming online, so if they
Okay,
can't find
G4 is
an
gonna go
ult-
in aggressive here though. Rich uses the ultimate, but he's back in the Baron Pit. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Shiva's trying to survive, will get taken down in the midst of 4 on the side of Evils. Noel's walk back in now, looking for the flag and drag, misses out against Tipper. Pulls him into the Cataclysm, into the cage, but he gets pulled back by the upper hand. Here we have it, Kinemon eyes on this carry, the burden of carry on this Kai'Sa, but she's running into a greater, and BRU will fall back against Evos.
Kinemon's so good. I don't think he's died yet this game. Oh no, he died once. But it's still remarkable. Kinemon and Archini aren't out of this game, and that serves as a reminder of it. Buriram definitely can still turn this game if we go to that 20-minute mark, like I was saying. And I do think that's hard, but Evos are kind of playing this mid-game a little bit slow, Grandin. The hot pot's still boiling, and that's a little bit worrying, frankly, if you're an Evos fan.
You're
Because the
simmering
timer...
it here, TJ. It's
Yeah.
up to a simmer. You want to see the boil, but Evos Esports, they're not impatient. You know, you let the frogs sit in the pot.
Yeah, but if you're in the next room, you're starting to smell some good cooking, you know? And that's a little bit worrying. That's Buriram kind of coming online.
Still a ways away from that, but we're starting to
Yeah.
see exactly what you mentioned there, TJ. Tipper is now stepping in aggressively against 2, and yet BRU are stepping away, giving respect to Tipper, who's faced
Jesus.
off against the two of them, ignoring any potential threat,
Lord.
flashes forward, won't be able to find anything. Shiva's gonna come in now, they're looking towards the Baron, down to 2,000, so they have to make a play now, have to commit to it, have to try and steal it away. It's gonna go over to Velda, securing it instead. They come back in, so Wild Grove get the knockout back onto G4. Kinemon's dashing in, it's looking to take them down, but Katsin has way too much damage as a double gunner comes across, looking at a third. Evos Esports will find the teammates.
And Buriram had to stop that Baron. They couldn't do it. And so Evos get the wipe. They'll end this game with about 5 minutes to spare before Buriram come online. And they will take their first game in this series, meaning we've got a series on our hands, as Evos are 1-2.
And it was surprising to see, TJ. I mean, we were surprised to see a 2-0 start from BRU, but now we're kind of going back into the main timeline. Two teams that are incredibly close in skill level, who's had long, rich histories against one another. Playing it out in the upper brackets, I mean, this is the result we've kind of expected.
Yeah, I mean, this is what this match should look like. It's going to be back and forth. Again, don't draw too much from the scoreline at the top of your screens there. That was an incredible execution of an early game, particularly from G4, who just looked really solid in terms of his role there. It wasn't his flashiest, like, damage game or kill game, but he was finding all those early charms, and that built the setup. That built the game for them so that they could fall back on the way they want to play, which is you find early engage, you snowball the top half of the map, for EVOS, you're talking about G4, you're talking about Valdez, you're talking about Fipper. And then once you get to the late game, you see what we had in the last fight, which is, hey, Cat Satan, by the way, has just been farming, he'll be good to fight. And if EVOS can repeat that game plan, if they can go back to their bread and butter, they can absolutely take wins over Buriram, maybe even wins as devastating as that one.
Well, there you have it. That was a devastating win. EVOS Esports are now able to pull back a game, and if you like what we saw, well, stick around because we still have more games for you right after this quick break.
Time's a healer, only time can tell. They say what doesn't kill ya makes you stronger. I know it well. Take your pulse and lie it down. It's all about now, and you're alive. Light is pulling you in. It's time to begin a new life. I feel enough to live. Forgive my
beginning of the reverse sweep for Eva's Esports? It could very well be the case because Eva's Esports get Game 3 with a massive win. Now, we've seen that the games so far between these two are pretty close, but this game had a massive gap. Riku, what were your thoughts on this match? I think this is Eva's Esports right now waking up.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent of, again, that match that they had during the grand finals where everything is pretty much close except for that one game where EVOS Esports had this ballooned up lead. And it's all, again, due to the fact that we've managed to see Rich over here with a really phenomenal Galio game, and as well as Valdez being able to pop off as well alongside with his very, very unique pick, which is the Fiora in the jungle. Basically, everything culminating together. Of course, cannot forget about Cat Satan on the Corki come late game, is able to be legendary, untouched, and just unkilled in that match.
Yes, Gimme, what about you? What do you think about this with Cat Satan? Oh my goodness, check out the KA. He didn't die.
Yeah, I mean, look at it. It's beautiful, isn't it? 8-0-4, the perfect game for the perfect player in that you're playing Corki. It's a champion that these two teams love to play, and they're getting away with it. So it looks to be that golden child. I'm just really happy because we asked the question, right, can we get more threats from EVOS to back up Fippis so it doesn't feel as if it's all on his shoulders? And whilst he individually had another phenomenal performance, you know, the slack was picked up, right? Valdez gets to pop off in the jungle. G4 gets to abuse the fact that this Ahri can do wonders in the early game. And Rich looked like a totally different beast as this Galio. And it feels like, yeah, this bot lane support matchup has been quite exciting because they both offered very different things. Maybe Galio is just a simple answer to it. But that was a devastating defeat, right? 22 kills to 3. Ultimately, it became like a 20k gold lead and a crushing defeat in 15 minutes. So this was a concern that we've seen against Buriram in the past, right? If there's early aggression, they can just break apart. And like these games 1 and 2, they were incredibly, incredibly close. Even in that last game, right, when EVOS lost every single objective, they're still potentially flipping the game. So yeah, I think if EVOS can play these aggressive drafts and actually get those leads, then they look like a whole different beast. So I was wondering if we would get the reverse sweep. I certainly wasn't going to think it was a 3-0. It just had to be a matter of EVOS playing to their strengths, and they did. So happy days.
Yeah, and of course the big question coming into Game 4 is if Buriram can close it out or if Eva's Esports again will push them into a Game 5. What do you think, Riku?
I think there is still that threat of a 3-1 in favor of BRU. I mean, it had something to do with the draft as well because the Corki Kai'Sa matchup, of course, early on in that 2v2, especially if a Corki is paired with an aggressive support, you do want to avoid that matchup, and that is exactly why we saw Kinemon basically doing a lane swap. The usual lane swap that we see is towards the top side, but it was a little bit different. It was a switch towards the mid lane during the early phases of the game, which is, again, just trying to avoid that matchup overall, but at the same time keeping Tipper in check by still having to have the same top lane Baron lane matchup. So I like the adjustment, but at the same time the early game coming from EVOS was just basically too much.
Yeah, and there's some early game highlights I actually want to bring up because that's where it got exciting for me, right? This is why I love to see teams showcase their class and their brilliance in a game. So if we bring up the very first one, it's about 6 minutes, I believe, into the game, where they've just got their Herald, they've summoned their Herald, and they're going to go for the dive afterwards because they're confident in their ability. So the Herald's already charged on through. They're going to go for this collapse. The Wild Growth's already been burnt. G4, or sorry, Rich says, I'm on a champion that can actually do something here. Hits the taunt, locks you in place. Sure, we can be critical there of G4 falling down. Shiba made that Hail Mary play with the Hextech ultimatum, but ultimately they're going to get this turret and then say, oh, beautiful riposte, also worth noting. Noel's like, well, I'm going to try and do a hero's play myself, but they're just dying one by one. They go down. Archie's like, I want no part to do with this. I've got the best KDA in this entire tournament. I'm going to keep it that way, but the rest of my team are going to fall on down. So 3 kills, a turret, and a whole bunch of pressure. And then this is Fipper doing what he's done all series long. He's a powerhouse, an absolute monster. 1v2, I don't care. I can do this because the rest of my team are actually showing up now. They've got pressure elsewhere around this Baron. Flash goes for the kill, doesn't find it, but doesn't matter. Off screen, he's going to get that kill anyway. Camille realizes, hey, wait a minute, I'm a jungler. I need to be in the area to try and contest this with the smite. Too much damage, too much pressure. EVOS up here by what? Soon to be 15k gold, and whilst they're making trades and they're trying to make it work, ultimately they will fall on down, and it's the Corki show once again with all these kills. I think we saw from the scoreboard, if you want to be really, really, really critical, we see it time and time again with these enchanters go for the Rod of Ages because they want to be a little bit more tanky, a little bit more durable. If I wanted to tweak it slightly, could have gone for the Ardent Sensor, a cheap item spike to try and match This huge discrepancy being down 15k. You give the wild growth, there's a shield. Maybe Kinemon can put in that 1v9 performance and find some more kills, but the Rod of Ages wasn't offering anything there. So really good game. I think if EVOS can get another draft where they can play aggressive early, it does set the tempo, and Buriram won't get that free coasting into 15 Barons, 30-minute late game scaling.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? The composition from earlier is that Buriram can't really do anything during the early phases of the game. Let's just say there is that 50-50 where Kinemon gets 3 early kills with the Kai'Sa Lulu combo, but it didn't really work because of the early pressure, early dives that EVOS has been inflicting on every single lane. And usually when mid plays scaling, AD carry plays scaling, who do you rely upon to help you transition that? And it's usually early game Baron laners such as the Renekton, but of course we get to see Noelle on tank duty to serve as the ball delivery system for the Arshini Shockwaves into the later matchups. So therefore, there's literally nothing to hold on to. There's no foundation for early, and therefore EVOS had so much space to work with to keep on with the pressure and get that humongous lead.
Yeah, and right now we're heading into Champ Select for game number 4 between EVOS and Buriram. And I actually have to ask, yes, we brought up the Baron lane. Noelle, by the way, in that earlier game, didn't exactly have a great game. We did see he didn't get any kills, he didn't get any assists, or barely got any assistant. But I do want to ask a question. You know, we talked a lot about Supporter and Rich, actually, because we have such a focus on the Dragon Lane duo. Should this game be a support priority here?
I mean, it looks to be the case, right? Galio's gone, and that seems to be the champion that offers these two so much. So if you don't ban the Galio, it just means that the Braum is let through. Supporter's going to snatch that one up without dropping a beat. He loves the champion, and he looks very, very proficient on it. Quickly, just to touch on your point, though, as you mentioned in the top lane, I think it's been fascinating to watch this battle between Thipper and Noelle, because in the first 2 games, Noelle was losing lane, but he was contributing so much more in these team fights with these beautiful cataclysms and knockups. But in that 3rd game, he wasn't able to win the lane, and he wasn't actually able to offer anything in the team fight. So they're going to run it back with this matchup once again, and it's just fascinating to see how it unfolds.
Exactly, that's why, right? If you lock in a Jarvan 4, you're going to be relying heavily on your carries to follow up with the damage. Even if you set, if there's no damage, there's really no point at all. So I really like EVOS just snatching the Corki right away, because once you lock in a Braum, usually you're expecting Kinemon to lock in a Kai'Sa as well for the 2v2. This means Buriram doesn't have to lane swap. They can play comfortably in the 2v2, and EVOS now defaulting to this Gragas, which could still potentially be flexed towards G4, considering that, again, he has played utility, he has played engage for the squad. Valdez again falling back into this Fiora. It has worked wonders previously as well. But what are the other options for EVOS for Rich? Because again, he had a shaky performance in the Gragas, so maybe, just maybe, this time around is different.
They're going to do it again, aren't they? They're going to say, look, we've wiped off the curse. You know, 2 games running it back as a Gragas. I'm feeling good. I played a game of Galio. It's been banned away. I'm going to do it one more time. I feel like, you know, the good luck charm is around us, and I hope so for his sake, because, you know, you've made sure that this bot lane matchup now is going to be as exciting as ever. Galio removed, Braum locked in instead, and a Gragas that needs to be on point. We were critical of him because he felt like a bit of a passenger. It looks so much better in that last game, but Riku, please, the Gragas can't end this way. Maybe the 3-1 curse is true. You've got the power to remove the technical pulls. You've got all the power. Maybe it's going to happen. Maybe you've broken it.
We'll see. I mean, I would love my prediction to still be right, but that's out of the window. So, as I voted 3-1 in favor of EVOS.
Yeah, well, we're going to see, you know, yes, we don't feel too comfortable with Rich on the Gragas, but they do have Valdez on the Fiora. We do know that that is an EVOS Esports special. Maybe that is their good luck charm coming into game number 4. Let's find out. Casters, over to you guys.
Thank you, Mika. And like you mentioned, it's the EVOS Esports special, it's the Buriram United special, it's the staple, it's what they go for, it's what we love to see. Don't you agree, TJ?
It's Wonder Bread. Other bread brands available.
I do not understand that reference.
Yeah, they're not very good bread. See, now they won't think that they've sponsored. Anyway, it's normal plain bread. You put it in the toaster, you're gonna have a decent breakfast, and that's all that's going on here. Buriram are playing through their traditional style. They're going to wait till the late game, and their plan is to win the late game through Archony and Kinemon and their team fighting prowess. Over on EVOS, it's their bread and butter as well. G4 is going to push in through the early game, try and snowball Valdez and Thipper out ahead. If they go to late game, EVOS will rely on Cat Satan's Corki to carry the late game team fighting. Here's the question, same as it was last game. Can they do that? Can G4 and Valdez start the early game strong? If they do, and Archony gets knocked behind, and Shiba gets knocked behind, this is hard mid-game, hard early game for Buriram to fight. But it's a little better than it was last game because they've got the Braum for supporter instead of a Lulu, because they've got the Kai'Sa for Kinemon, which will allow them to fight a little bit early alongside that Braum.
And that's why I kind of felt like a disconnect between what BRU have been doing for the past 2 games and the 3rd game, where they brought in the Lulu, and it just seemed like not having a supporter in some form of a tank, some form of a lineman, if you will, against EVO's Esports Engage. Like, we've seen him play the Galio 2 games in a row. It just was such a different take, a different look for BRU.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because it was either Lulu or Thresh were the 2 picks I was thinking through, because they needed some kind of tank, and Lulu isn't a tank, but she makes other characters a tank, so it's kind of the same thing. I say kind of because it's not and it's bad, but quote me on that. But it was interesting to me that supporter didn't pull out the Thresh, because I kind of frankly expected Thresh to fulfill that role. He gets Braum here, and that's much stronger, that's much better at stalling out games. The big marker for me is going to be whether or not Buriram can contest early fights, whether or not Buriram can survive early fights, because that's, of course, where EVO's absolutely shattered them during Game 3 of this series.
Oh, here we have it. We're going into the arena.
Yeah, we do have a little bit of a technical pause, unfortunately, as one of the players disconnected as we're loading in.
Right.
So I'm going to send things back over to the analyst desk for a hot second, as we have been told that they're ready to receive us and have a quick conversation about what has happened during that technical pause set up for the next couple of minutes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just been a good kind of run going into this one overall, and we're just making sure that everything is going to be all right going into this game, because it is that very important match, right? EVO's Esports have now been able to pull back, and this was a surprise for us because BRU, you know, the fact that they were able to take those first two games were an impressive one. EVO's, now we're starting to see them come back up the speed. You to mention last game, you finally saw a composition that you like from EVO's. I mean, how are you feeling about this second one as well?
This is the same thing, right? It's very functionally the same composition. They're going back to the bread and butter that made them in the first place. They're going back to the EVOS that was so successful regionally. And I have been a little bit surprised at the EVOS Esports eye that we've seen so far in this tournament. Their various performances have frankly looked a little underwhelming compared to what EVOS brought to bear during the Summer Super Cup. So this is, I think, a very good test of whether or not EVOS can still hit that key form that got them so far previously, or whether or not they're falling to the new blood, to Buriram's seeming ability to stall out any game and get into the late game.
And this is surprising to us because, you know, going into this, right, BRU, they kind of had a long journey through the competition. EVOS, they had an easier time. They were already seeded in, and so they were able to just play things out directly. BRU, to us, when they were drafted into Bracket A, we were surprised to see that, right? We were surprised to see them going into Group A looking like as strong as they were. Top of the group, were able to dominate things from that side of the bracket. Now going into this one, you know, it is interesting for us to see for sure.
Yeah, and Buriram plus EVOS is such a fun regional match, but it's also just the regional match. And one of the big storylines in this tournament is going to be, of course, the same as it was last tournament. What happens to these really powerful-looking Thai teams when they play against Vietnam, when they play against the Taiwan region? And so much of this is just harkens back to what happened during the Summer Super Cup, where, of course, EVOS went to the Grand Final, won the Grand Final, are the reigning champions. Because we're seeing these very slow, very steady game plans versus teams that are also playing slow. You're looking at FPTC, they're not going to wait around. They're not going to let you play the Buriram style of play. So there's a lot of kind of question marks still floating above this game, if you will.
Sure. Let's see if there's any new adaptations or there's new growth. I mean, it's two teams that are very experienced against each other, playing against each other once again. And so there is an argument to be made that this is them going back towards their comfort picks, going back to a style that they are most comfortable with. And, well, if there's any chance for more growth and more adaptations, well, this is going to be it. As Evo's Esports, well, they're facing off against BRU, who are at match point 2-1. Let's get it.
2-1. Buriram one game away from upsetting the regional champions, from sending the reigning champions of Southeast Asia down to the lower bracket. EVOS on the other side, maybe starting their comeback. They would need 2 games themselves, of course, 2 in a row, to win this best-of-5 series.
It's revenge of Noel here, perhaps. Tipper's gonna force him out once again. Want to mention very quickly as well, Kinemon's gone down to the bottom lane. Archie has gone down to the bottom lane. Kinemon's gone to the mid lane as well.
Yeah, they keep doing this whenever Archie's playing Orianna into G4, into G4's Ahri, because Orianna into Ahri, same reason as Twisted Fate into Ahri, it's just miserable. The Ahri can get up close and land charms, and you instantly die even at early levels. So it makes sense that they're putting the Kai'Sa there instead of the Orianna. And it makes sense that they're sending a lot of resources down bottom, because again, what EVOS want to do with this composition, with their default style of play, is get Baldus and G4 out early as this roaming mid-jungle duo. That's what defines EVOS Esports, that's what defined their previous SEA championship.
But here's what I'm seeing right now, TJ. Evo's Esports have got control of the map early on. Tippo's winning his lane. G4 is shoving it out. Veldus has got bot side Scuttle Crab and top side Scuttle Crab now. Both of those available for Fiora, who's likely going to become a massive threat in the mid late game, where Shiba, well, is kind of losing some tempo, especially since he had to make sure his bot lane was safe there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a caution here though, which is that Buriram can stand to lose quietly for the first 15 minutes of this game. If they lose quietly and manage to keep the gold deficit, it's right now dead even, but if they manage to keep the gold deficit to within 1,000 or 2,000 for the entire game, then they probably win late game off of Orianna Kai'Sa teamfights. Orianna is that good if she's on parity, if she's at a decent point when we get to the late game. So
I'll have to look to the top side now because they found Tipper.
Wow.
And looking at the heal, they might be able to take down Noel. The barrier comes across, but still first blood to the Jarvan.
So what I'm gonna say, this is what Buriram really want to do. Get a little bit of extra credit on that assignment. Turn in the paper a day early, you know what I mean? And if they can find those kills, and they can be that guy that everyone hates in class, then all of a sudden their late game's looking very good. Here's EVOS trying to accelerate G4 though. He's going to take the tour down to the bottom lane for the second time this game. This is the second time this game that G4 and Valdus have shown up down bottom. And it's the second time this game that Buriram have been ready for it and not given them any opportunities. Very good signs for BRU.
Freeing up a lot of space for the top side to get work done, while the bottom man playing towards the weak side because you are running that Orianna Braum don't necessarily have that fight potential early on. Like you mentioned, you get that 15-minute mark, then well, you're good to go. Evo's Esports now, they've been doing a good job enabling G4 to roam around, but they haven't been able to convert that into very much. As a result, though, you do see a substantial gold lead building for G4 over Archie.
And I do want to also give a pretty big amount of credit to the top lane, where Noel, or every game this series, has been in tank jail. He's just playing Jarvan, which is not a character that can do damage, and you might be like, man, Noel's such a talented player, it sucks to see him on characters that don't do damage, but he has actually just played this lane masterfully. He's been so careful, baited Tipper in multiple times, always been relevant in late game team fights. He's killing it on Jarvan duty.
Oh, absolutely, and in Evo's Esports, I think they've kind of acknowledged it as well. You've seen how aggressively Tipper has had to play. The fact that Veldus is paying so much attention to that lane in many of their games. I mean, this game is a bit of an exception, though.
I mean, the fact that every time we've come up to that top lane, Tipper has been, like, trying to fight Jarvan underneath turret, and of course you can't do that, just speaks to how well Noel is playing that lane, how well he's controlling it. Here, though, he's had to leave lane because Dragon's up, and this might be the start of the fight. Of course, the winner of this runs away with an early game lead. EVOS want to pretty much wipe it. That's why they're forcing this fight, starting the action early. Buriram want to contest, but it's okay if they don't win this fight. And they're just looking for
but Shiba's gonna jump into the pit either way, but he's facing off against 5. Doesn't realize how many are gonna be there waiting for him. Characters doesn't come across. Shiba secures the dragon. They've taken it away. Evo's Esports running for the hills, running for their lives. Tipper gonna get caught by the stun. The concussive blows will stop him in place. And Evo's Esports have to get away.
And that's huge for Buriram. That's huge for the upset. as Buriram have won the early game team fights. They've earned that extra credit I was talking about. And with kills onto Valdez and Thipper, their second kill onto Thipper, the early game snowball that EVOS want to start rolling downhill, as they always do, is nowhere in sight. It's a hot summer day, Granton, and all the snow is melting, and EVOS are going to need to wait until the hyper late game and rely on Cat Satan, their insurance policy, to win this game.
And we've seen the performance he can perform for us when he gets to that point. So it's not too wild to assume that Evil's Esports might play to that. But even as I say that, look at how aggressively they step it up, making it difficult for BRU to collect the Rift Tower because they understand, well, we can still win a fight here. There's still a good chance that we can take the fight to BRU, collapse in on them with our big key ultimates. Instead, Evil's Esports, well, after I say that, they're gonna back away, they're gonna spread out.
Yeah, they can't fight right now. And unlike the last time that we saw this kind of setup, unlike the last time we saw the game being pinned on a Corki AD carry, Buriram have the damage to match. They've got this Orianna who's going to really scale into the late game team fights, especially right now where she's ahead. And it's very hard for EVOS to match that with an Ahri who's a single target duelist and can't team fight nearly as well.
Well, they do trade turrets on the other side. Valdez is receiving a lot of gold.
Look at the push from Buriram.
himself specifically.
Buriram keep pressing this advantage though. They're still going.
They jump onto Rich first. Tipper's gonna pull them away with the upper hand. Rich still survives. Concussive blows
save.
not applied anymore. Won't be able to take anybody down just yet, but it's stuck under turret. We'll have to see if Kinnamon's gonna jump in. He fires out the plasma shot. Won't continue though.
And Thipper demonstrates his class, demonstrates why he's one of the best top laners in the world there. Saving his teammate and denying the effectiveness of that Cataclysm from Noel, but of course all his teammates still needed to reset, so this mid-turret.
Evil's Esports, they're trying to jump in now, but watch out for the Glacial Fissure because it's gonna stop you right there. Velda's unable to secure the first kill. Noel comes across with a flagging drag. Kinnamon faces off against the Grand Challenge but survives with the Captain Rain, but flashing forward with the charm. G4 nearly takes him down. Supporter, stand behind me. The wall will keep him alive.
Supporter comes through, and he keeps Kinnamon alive. And that might have saved the game for Buriram, or at least saved their lead, as it means that EVOS can't build up the snowball. They're still looking though, but Archety's here, he'll have the wave clear, and EVOS can't press down the mid-turret. If they kill Kinnamon, EVOS absolutely can chip away at the mid-turret. Absolutely can take team fights for the next couple of moments. So it is massive that Buriram deny that, even in the face of EVOS's best efforts.
Smart move from Archie to use the shockwave to clear the wave, not get baited by the opponents, because you're not gonna get killed anyway. The best case scenario is you clear the wave, there's nothing for EVOS to do, they have to reset. Look at them, they backed off, and BRU have come in, stolen the blue buff. I mean, just why not, right? But they're now moving on to Valdez again, and looking at the repulse, flash of the wall, the charm is waiting for him in the face of Shiba, who is gonna be able to dash away with that key burst.
G4 with the charm to interrupt this cycle, to interrupt the combo. Really well played. But EVOS, they're playing really well, but they're playing from behind. They've matched this game state incredibly. The fact that Valdez got a split lane turret earlier and they mitigated the aggression from Buriram, all remarkable. But the facts of the matter are still Buriram's gold lead growing, EVOS's gold lead not looking so good. They're now behind 3,000 gold. And if you remember, their only hope really in this game is that Cat Satan, the boy down bottom, and the little biplane gets so big he can single-handedly win team fights. They do have other threats. They do have G4, but if we get to the late game, he's not going to be able to match what an Orianna can offer.
And it's going to be so important to make sure that Cassian is alive in a lot of these fights. He's still a ways away from his boot items completed, so he's not going to be able to, well, drop off any kind of crowd control, survive against an initial engage. He's really going to have Rich be there to provide that support and make sure that this engage is available for him. Dragon's going to be up both sides, eyeing it down, unable to commit for it just yet.
And I want to highlight something else as we head into these team fights, which is Archony is one of the best Orianna players I've ever seen. He's really good at playing at the very end of his range, at hovering at the back of these fights and just throwing damage out through the team without being at personal risk. So pay attention to that, pay attention to Archony on these kinds of control mages, because it's really hard to fight into.
And it's a very different situation from what we saw in the third game, where Archie wasn't quite available or quite online. Looking like a potential engage to get the shockwave off. It barely creeps off Cat Satan. We'll have to see if there's going to be enough. Flash away from G4 because he realizes the threats are there. Chasing them down, but they've taken down Anthony as well. Valdez making quick work of the backline. The repulse will buy some time. They find the second. The tank down on Noel. And here we have it. Evil's Esports coming back in. They turn tables. Find the hatch onto BRU and get the gold star from TJ.
Valdez and Zipper, the top side, down gold, behind in the game. It does not matter. Buriram go over aggressive and they leave Hartney, they leave Kinemon undefended because Noel hard commits, because Shiba hard commits. They're digging so deep that they don't notice the flank from Valdez, the flank from Zipper. Watch this, they all engage and Valdez right underneath that replay box just full commits onto the backlines, completely ignoring the dime. He knows what matters in this fight is that he sets up for this. Dipper cleaning up the backlines. That is beautiful, and that is why you can never count EVOS out of a game.
Incredible moves from Evil's Esports, who, despite the fact they have been playing from behind, have made incredible macro rotations to match against BRU now. As I say that, they're gonna jump back onto Tipper, who's at the expanded barrier already. He's looking low, has to flash away. You still see G4 and Valdez acting as the front man, the lines to block against them to save Tipper. Buriram United unable to find a kill there.
They're gonna keep pressing though, because they know they have an advantage on the map.
Oh my goodness, Rich might not have such a nice time, not so much left to say. It's Noel that takes him down.
And whenever you get someone low like that, Buriram do there, they get a player very low, that player needs to recall. So even if you don't get a kill, you can keep pushing like you did. When you get a kill, when you force someone to back, you've gained tempo, and you should be doing this.
They find tempo and they go into the mid lane, they take down Tipper. That's 2 pickoffs already for BRU, and we'll see what they can do with this tempo.
They're going to keep shoving. They know they still have a player advantage because they've kept snowballing these kills. Here's Valdez.
They're working on the turret. Valdez comes in, tries to make an admirable move to keep BRU away, and they will. The turret's still standing.
If you get a kill and the other team didn't do enough damage to force your players to reset, you should always be doing what Buriram are doing. I see a lot of teams, especially teams that are newer to competitive play, resetting after they get a kill. That is the opportunity where you have to press your advantage, and Buriram understand this. And every time they get a kill in that chain, they go, okay, well, we now have another 30-second timer that we've just started. That is until EVOS can fight us with parity. That is until EVOS can fight us in a fair fight. And we're going to keep pressing that advantage until we go a link too far, until we go a bridge too far. And that's when Buriram fall back. Valdez does a little bit of damage, and they're like, okay, we can back off. We won this trade. Very good play from Buriram, and it regrows that gold lead. The gold lead died, it was down to 3k. Now massive again, look at that.
I love the vision line that we just saw from BRU, by the way, TJ. It just expired, but they had a great line of vision in the jungle of Evil's Esports. So now you can see they know where the opponents are, they know where the aggressors are, so now they get to be the aggressors. They jump in. Rich is going to have to commit the explosive cast. That's also the package used just to disengage.
Down bottom, there's a 1v1 duel happening as Zipper goes all out versus Valdez. Or sorry, Zipper goes all out versus Noel.
Oh my goodness, there's no way the soul kill comes across Captain Rain. Not enough damage, and the plasma shot barely misses.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet. Deep breath, Grant, and we're not quite there yet.
I'm a little bit hypey here. TJ,
It is
could be the
scary
series.
though, because Buriram are about to get what would be their 3rd dragon of this game. And with this spike of gold, Kinemon should be at full build. And this is it. This is the moment where Buriram kind of come online into the late game form that I said was going to win them this game. So EVOS need to start a fight now. It's not going to get any better for them. They're relying again entirely on Cat Satan. But now also they do have Valdez in with a shout because he's kept his gold relatively good, all things considered.
Shima's far away from the rest of his team, though. He's gonna have to watch out. G4, no! Spirit Rush has to flash over the wall, but he still have to deal with Shiba. Beautiful plays coming through from this ribbon, TJ. I'm loving this. He's gonna go down, though.
He's
Has to
dead.
flash away,
No!
has to use the dash, and he still falls. Valdez on his
Oh!
tail's not necessary there.
What a play from G4 as well, the charm stasis. Absolutely incredible 1v1. The Ignite saving his life. And here we go, 4v4. EVOS want to press this advantage with Shiba down. They have even gold on Cat Satan as anyone on Buriram. He has about 11,000 in the bank. That's about parity with the most fed members of Buriram. You see Buriram around 12k, Cat Satan now around 12k. And that's a sign of just how well EVOS play to their own win conditions. Cat Satan, during games like this where he needs to farm up and be able to match in the late game, you'll notice he's not contributing to any of these weird skirmishing teamfights that EVOS have been doing during this time. Because he doesn't have damage yet. It's not his job to do damage yet. His job is to sit in side lanes and get farm and take jungle camps and kill minions. And he's been doing that so well and so effectively have EVOS enabled it that he is now equivalent to people who have been beating them for 6,000 gold for the last 16 minutes. And Cat Satan will be able, as a result of this, to actively teamfight, to go fair against Buriram. And that's why EVOS still have a shot in this game.
I mean, they're still looking like they haven't lost that fight in them. They're still trying to position against BRU aggressively, watching out for any chance they can get a catch, get a pick off, and maybe try to close out the goal gap again. BRU doing a great job setting up a strong line of vision, making sure that they have all the choke points cleared out, so they're able to play towards their own strength, which are going to be these skirmishes, these fights with the Jarvan, with the Orianna, with the Riven coming in as well. I mean, it's looking pretty decent for them.
And over on the EVOS side, they don't want to take those skirmishes. They want to rely on the fact that they have the picks. They have Valdez, they have G4, who are so good at finding individual isolated players. Thipper as well. Anytime that they can catch somebody out by themselves, EVOS are winning.
Well, they're back onto the Baron now. First, though, Flag and Drag comes across from the well, trying to build
Thipper
some
up
speed.
river.
G4 misses out the chance, so it's going to be a disastrous fight for them
There's
to take.
Thipper.
Grand challenge, long stand back in, a beautiful knockback from Shiba. Tipper's now joining
EVOS
as well,
win this.
but they have damage to finally take him down. It's going over. The Kinemon coming online is the ultimate marksman. The ultimate marksman wins, and a triple kill and a double kill makes for an aces 2+3 TJ. It's simple mathematics. Buriram United on the victory march.
That's it! Archony arrives in the late game and lands a truly massive team fight ultimate, and Buriram will upset EVOS. Buriram will take down the best team in Thailand and the reigning champions, knocking them to the lower bracket.
Look at that excitement there, TJ. You can just see how happy they are. We had a chance to talk to Supporter before. They came in through the last chance qualifiers. We got to talk to them, and they mentioned how they were going back to prepare, get ready, new strategies. Look at that. Making sure we see that victory screen.
Making sure we see that victory screen. What a journey it has been for Buriram, like you said, from the last chance qualifiers, from many, many defeats at the hands of EVOS, the reigning SEA champions, to here, where they 3-0'd EVOS on their own terms, where they looked dominant in 2 of those 3 wins, where they can absolutely look forward to the rest of this bracket as, I think, one of the favorites in this tournament from this point forward.
Absolutely, and well, BRU 3-1 will continue to run the upper brackets. What can I say, TG? I'm just loving this team. All these teams coming in playoffs form. I'm looking forward to see more from them. But to break down that series and to give us more insight, we're gonna hand it over to the analyst desk because they have all the bits of information that we're looking for. So take it away, guys.
Thank you so much, casters. And isn't this poetic? This is a reverse of what happened in the grand finals of the Sea Icon Series Thailand fall season. Riku, we talked about this, about how, you know, Buriram United Esports, they were always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We come into the playoffs of the Sea Champs, and they look so good. What happened there in that game? I thought EVOS had it so many times.
Yeah, it was, you know, we get to see Shiba being such an amazing jungler, being able to threaten G4 all by himself, 529, being able to secure all the dragons for their team, and EVOS, again, unfortunately couldn't get Cat Satan ahead, and they weren't able to find these opportunities away from the map, and I feel like, again, it has been, you know, Shiba that really shined in this series, and of course, Kinemon come late game is able to get all of these aggressive killer instincts, and EVOS Esports had no response.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
again, this is a reverse score, isn't it, of the grand finals in Thailand? Yeah.
I mean, it
think
is.
so, yeah.
I guess they get the revenge. I guess Riku is the smartest analyst on the desk. Just knows everything before it even happens. I thought that was possible for me, being down here in Australia, where we're like, ahead of the clock. But it doesn't really matter, I guess. She just knows far too much. So I'm just going to predict all my predictions based on what she mentions now. But yeah, no, seriously, Buriram, phenomenal gameplay. Really, really clean team fighting. Out of this world comprehension of what needs to be done. And a lot of close calls. Like, we're going to bring up some highlights in a second. Context going into this one, 7 minutes 50. 3 blinking health bars, a 4v4 breaks out, and mid, you're thinking this goes really in EVOS's favor. It's a turret dive. It could have been. I mean, that could have been enough for them to try and get some momentum on their own front to, break open a turret, have respawn time to play around. It wasn't to be the case. They get away. You're thinking, how on earth has this happened? But then we bring it back. Deja vu, just like you love to see it. 10 minutes 30, they say, we want a bit of that spice in our life once again. So Buriram say, we're feeling confident about our chances. We've got 9 lives. You can't take us down. We're going to go for that dive. Oh, hang on a minute. We're falling down. Maybe a little bit too over-eager here. And EVOS show their class, their determination, their grit to then get some kills and make this an absolute bloodbath in the mid lane. You're thinking, is that the turning point? Is this when the game does get flipped? Is this what EVOS are hunting for? Because they're chasing a gold lead, which is getting out of control. And this is always interesting for me when you have a Corki composition, how close you can keep it when you're doing this big battle of scaling. But then it comes down to the Baron. Another game where Buriram have just got all this map control to get all those Drakes and say, we're going to team fight again. The cast goes out, looking to try and split apart some key carries. It doesn't really matter in the end. It's a battle of the Zonias, it's a battle of the Stasis. And then you're going to see the Shockwave come on through. You're all clumped up together. Archnie says, I'm not just a KDA padder. I'm actually really, really good at team fighting too. And that just lights out as clean as you like it. A full ace and a 17-minute defeat. So Buriram are sort of gifted the early game pressure to diffuse any kind of EVOS late game comeback. And they ran out of steam.
Yeah, I really like that fight as well, Skimmy. I mean, the fact that Kinemon came in a tad like 2 seconds late into the fight, meaning when Kinemon entered the fight, no threatening cooldowns were available already from Evo. So basically you can just enter the fight, Killer Instinct aggressively, with no fear of getting punished.
And this was a fight that we actually thought, again, that EVOS Esports had the lead many, many, many times. But Buriram United, they just know how to turn fights around. And we saw them. They're looking really comfortable. They're looking really happy, of course. We saw Supporter, smiling, doing this, busting out the muscles. And we had him actually, like, hold up the phone up onto your screen, showing the victory screen. I feel like that's a Southeast Asia special, by the way. Southeast Asia teams do that. So, yes. Welcome, by the way.
I'd love to see next time? I'd love to see him take a selfie, show his selfie to the screen, and it's just like him with a big, big smile. That would be the most alpha celebration I've probably ever seen. Probably really creative too, so I'd love to see that. Just putting it out there. If you're watching Supporter, yeah, do it.
That would be so meta. We'll probably get a chance to talk to him sometime, and we could probably tell him that. He'd probably be on board. I mean, he seems like a really, really cool guy. But yes, Buriram United just played this so well. I didn't think that we would see this. I mean, we clearly voted for EVOS Esports all throughout. Who is writing the script, by the way? I mean, we said goodbye to Divine yesterday, and now Buriram is our front runner for the Thai region. This is crazy. And of course, that wouldn't be possible without our MVP of that series. I actually saw the votes. It was really close. I think it was a tie, so I'm not sure which player got the MVP, but it's gonna be Kinemon over here with that 67.9% kill participation. I think he did so well. We expected this, that it was gonna be a Dragon Lane matchup, that Kinemon, the pressure was gonna be on him throughout this series, and I think he delivered. Riku, what did you think of his performance?
I mean, Kinemon has been one of the most consistent members coming from Buriram, starting from the playoffs. And I feel like this player has been so amazing at his role, to the fact that even during their local qualifiers, even though Buriram may not play around Kinemon, he can still make moves by himself and is able to shine throughout the especially during the late game. But I think in this series in particular, he has shined in all phases of the game, no matter if it's a scaling AD carry, whether or not it's a very strong mid-game AD carry like a Corki, it didn't matter. Kinemon just really was hella consistent.
Yeah, and it was, as you said, right at the top of this one, it was going to be a battle of those two Dragon Laners, and it was really a case of who can play the Corki and the Kaiser better. And ultimately, those two were pretty cracked on it, but Kinemon just continues to showcase that, hey, I take risks in life, and I'm not afraid to, risk that financial future by getting the dub, the 3-1, the clean execution. The man is a little bit too good on that Kaiser, so I'm stoked to see him pick that one up.
Definitely backed by Franklin Templeton with how secure he was with that future. Absolutely. But right now, we can hear from Buriram United themselves. I think we have Supporter on the line over here, the man, and we love having him here on the desk. By the way, Supporter, congratulations on that momentous win against Evus Esports. I bet you're feeling good. Yes, you're feeling good indeed. I just want to ask you, you guys came from the last chance qualifiers. You guys dominated the group stages. And now you guys are dominating the playoffs. What is your secret? You guys have to give us something.
We give our fans one false hope, right? That we cannot come to good state. I mean, we kind of lost of meta at the beginning. Then Divide showed us how the meta play. Yeah.
Awesome. It's really working so well for you guys. And of course, it's showing in all of your success here. Skimmy, I think you have a special request for Supporter.
I do. Now, look, Supporter, I love you, mate. You're full of personality. You give us so much charisma on that couch when you're, grouped up with the team. I saw your celebration, right? You show us your phone with the victory screen. I've got an idea for you, okay? I'm going to try and be your social media manager here. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. Who knows? Let's see. I would love if you just took a selfie, big smile when you get another victory, and you just show us the selfie. It's just you smiling at the camera, and the world gets to see that you're just so happy. You're just having a great time in the game. Next time,
Oh, look at
absolutely.
that.
Just get in my personal space. Intimidate me. Intimidate the opposition.
Sure. Let's see how it went. If I win
Sure.
next time. If we win.
Deal. Perfect.
Yeah.
There you have it. Something to look forward to. Something to look forward to. Riku, you got a question for Supporter?
Yes, I do. I mean, congratulations, defeating longtime rivals against Evos Esports. But, I gotta ask this. It feels like you guys are heading straight to top 2 with your performance right now. I gotta ask, who else do you think will be a threat in the competition?
Not gonna lie. Every team is a threat to us. But for now, we really want to win who's gonna come against us. Either it's gonna be Secret or SBTC. We're really looking forward to every team. So for now, we just need to strengthen our plan and focus on what we have doing here.
Well, that is working so well for you guys. We wish you guys the best of luck for the rest of
I
your
want
matches.
to say something.
Go ahead.
Even though we win today, doesn't mean that EVOS is not a better team. They're still a good team, to be honest, in this tournament. We really respect them for helping us during the group stage and everything. Yeah, just want to say that. Thank you.
Nice.
Aw, look at that.
That's great.
It's still of course the brotherhood coming through. Supporter, thank you so much. And you guys gave us such a great series to start off with. We wish you the best of luck in
Thank
the
you.
rest of your matches.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, you're getting the selfie.
Oh, just as the peace sign. This guy's so meta. Look at him.
So cute.
How can you not love him? Oh.
Exactly. And I just love that they had to give a special shout out to Evos Esports. They know that, they're going into the lower bracket after this series. They know that they're going to be dealing with that pressure. They just had to give them a special shout out. It's got to warm your heart, doesn't it? All that sportsmanship coming through from the Thai region. And I'm sure, Evos Esports are pretty much like their best friends. They've gone through heaven and hell here at the Icon series from summer all the way to fall and now to the SEA Championship. So it is quite a relationship indeed. And I'm pretty sure Evos, of course, they've been exchanging metas and they're probably scrim partners all the time,
Sure.
So it is nice to see that camaraderie pulling through. Let's check out the updated brackets because we have a very interesting scenario coming up later today. And of course, up next will be SBTC Esports and Team Secret. But I do believe we are seeing Evos Esports and one team. Oh no, Evos Esports and Flash Wolves going head to head. Now it's funny because in the grand finals of the previous of the Summer Super Cup, Evos Esports went up against one team. Now they're taking Flash Wolves. They seem to be fated. They seem to be somehow connected to the Taiwan region, to the teams of the Taiwan region over here. Riku, I don't believe we've seen this matchup before. How do you think it's gonna go down?
Yeah, this is going to be very, very exciting because, of course, Flash Wolves versus one team. I feel like Flash Wolves is definitely one of the slower-paced teams when it comes to just finishing the game towards the 20-minute mark. So I feel like Flash Wolves may have a bit of a struggle against Esports, Evos Esports. The way that they've been accelerating the game, as we've seen, versus Buriram United, could be something interesting. But either way, though, we might see a Flash Wolves one team, perhaps, depending on if it's SBTC or Team Secret dropping down to the one-team bracket. bracket, or we get to possibly see if ever EVOS wins, then maybe we get to see one team in EVOS in the lower bracket.
Maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much history, as you say, Rika, right, from a Summer Super Cup that could have come back at a very early stage here. So it would have been quite hype. Would have been kind of upsetting as well, I'm sure, given that one of those teams would have had to get knocked out for it. But yeah, EVO's taking on Flash Wolves. That should be pretty spicy if it does go to distance. We do have a bit of a slower tempo game once again. A battle of split pushing, perhaps. Maybe a case of more Ari being contested and locked in to try and pop off.
Yeah, definitely excited to get into that. But of course, we do have our next series coming right up, and it is going to be a big one. It is SBTC Esports versus Team Secret. This is one that, of course, a lot of people are looking forward to. We're gonna get into that right after this quick break.
Are you ready to define your character, to choose your financial objective, to choose your investment strategy, and build your portfolio? Start now and level up your investment knowledge with Franklin Templeton.
Be my eye. Hello to all League of Legends Wild Rift fans. We're aespa. I'm Karina. I'm Giselle. I'm Winter. I'm Nini. We're excited to be part of the ESL Mobile Challenge presents the Wild Rift SCA Championship Grand Finals this weekend.
Catch our performance in the live broadcast happening this 3rd October. Unleash greatness.
See you there!
welcome back to the C Championships, guys. We just saw the script flipped again here with Buriram United Esports taking the win over Evus Esports. Now, we are going to head into our next match of the day, and it is going to be between SBTC versus Team Secret. Now, earlier today, I gave the best metaphor ever, and this is not a David and Goliath matchup because Team Secret is not an underdog in this tournament at all, but rather it is a T-Rex versus a Velociraptor because they're both intelligent predators with very different ways of hunting, and the T-Rex, SBTC in this case, is the big boss, and the Raptors are scary too because they tend to outsmart their enemies just like Team Secret. I've gone full on Nat Geo for this, but I swear I'm making sense. Welcome to the desk, Gamernism. How you like my dinosaur metaphor?
Yeah, I just can't tell. It's just like Jurassic Park or Jurassic World. Like, what tier are we talking about here? Because we're going like OG Jurassic Park. I think the Velociraptors win,
always
right?
Jurassic Park.
Yes, in which case the Velociraptors are supposed to win this competition, right?
Yes, exactly.
If they work as a team, right?
They do work as a, yes. Team Secret will use their heightened olfactory senses to win this game.
Olfactory,
No,
wow.
We're going to.
All right.
Okay, we're going to go away from that, but I feel like, you know, this game, of course, we know Team Secret, they do very, very well in the drafting phase. So I feel like this is where they have to win this game because, you know, Gamernism, I don't know if Team Secret can outplay SBTC right now.
Yeah, if it's like a mechanical level, I think SBTC do have some incredible players. I mean, you look at the likes of Julie TF, and TJ likes to use this, some of the best players in the world. I genuinely think that SBTC really do have the best players in the world, and the sum of their parts just make up for such a strong team. Now, here's where they falter. Like you mentioned, they are a massive T-Rex for sure, but they're fine play. You know, they have tiny arms. They have difficulty maneuvering these micro details, right? Broad strokes, incredible. But when it comes down to the fine details, that's where I think Team Secret has a chance to upset them.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that, again, we get to see Team Secret have a lot of ways, a lot of compositions to sort of maneuver around SBTC to see, and especially it's a BO5 scenario as well, so there's that a lot of adjustment to work with, a lot of time to work with.
Yeah, I think we should also bring up the special sort of, you know, scenario for this team that whoever is going to the lower bracket will have to sort of conserve their energy or will have to make sure that they can, you know, endure all of these matches that come right up. And for Team Secret, you know, I think the advantage of them is, of course, you don't exactly know what they're going to be bringing out and how they're going to play it. So there's sort of like that two-way filter, I guess. There's the draft, and you're taken aback by it, and then you don't know how they play it when they actually enter the Rift. But how long do you think, Riku, they can sustain this kind of like, you know, wacky, unpredictable sort of playstyle?
I mean, I think they can pretty much be consistent in that aspect just because they've done it so many times, even during the local qualifiers, where they're always the trendsetters. They will always, usually when something new is played in the competition, it's usually coming from Team Secret. So possibly the same could be said maybe in this series, especially when we look at Team Secret, the way that they're so brave, or rather the way that they execute things in new compositions, it's very, very refreshing and could catch SBTC off guard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tatsuri, you know, you can't sleep on the guy. He's an insane mid laner. He's given us such top-notch performances across the board. And the guy that I really want to watch out for is going to be Azar here, because Azar's been kind of hit and miss. He's been getting on form recently, right? Once we come into playoffs, he's looking better and better for sure. Now, I think that's where things are going to be a different, like where it's going to make a difference. If he's not able to match up against SBTC in the top lane, well, it's going to be difficult. But mid lane is this powerhouse juggernaut, two absolute titans in his competition.
Yeah, exactly. This Tatsuri versus Julie matchup is going to be very exciting just cause I really like how, again, when we look back at Team Secret's performance back in the Summer Super Cup, they were able to reach full Game 5 against Cerberus. At the time, was the second seed coming in from the Vietnam region. So he played 5 different carries, 5 different champions, unique champions rather, within that series, and very exciting to see what he brings out, considering the fact that there's a lot of pocket picks like the Katarina that he would play constantly, even during the local qualifiers, and even without setup. He doesn't need CC. He would usually just go in on his own, wait for the right timing, and basically get pentakills.
Yeah, and we even gave him the nickname, like Pentatsuri. We kind of forced that a little bit. Kind of forced that somewhere in there.
Katatsuri?
A little bit, yeah. Gamernism, Big G is like cringing. It's like, oh my gosh, please stop.
It's
but
not good. Not as good as
But-
your, not as good as your one team, one esports and Franklin Templeton stuff for sure. But I'll give it to you, Mika. It's a good
oh,
try.
why? Thank you so much there. But yes, I do believe that with Julie and Tatsuri, this is gonna be really scary. Of course, because SBTC, and I think we have lower thirds for this discussion in particular, they are currently the best team in Southeast Asia. And because we know that Southeast Asia is the best region for Wild Rift in the world, therefore, they are currently, I think, the best team in the world. I mean, we did bring out, Hamas is great, Tatsuri is great. The thing is, everybody at SBTC right now, they're all popping off. It's gonna come down to, I like that you brought up Azar, Gamernism, because there is that little bit of a flex between Minas and Unero for SBTC, but they're all really scary. They're all really scary, and I think, everybody who is cheering for Team Secret Lineup, we're all a little worried because this is SBTC, and they are by far, with the group stages, everything that we've seen so far, they've been the best team. They have been the most consistent team as well.
Yeah, they've basically won every single match when it comes to the group stages, at least. And even 2-0'd EVOS Esports that looked really, really strong coming into the playoffs, and as well as Divine, who sadly is already eliminated. But everything else, every single matchup has been 1-1. And every single time that they showed up, it was just very consistent. I mean, we talked about the individual lanes, the flex from Unero and as well as Minas. Every single time, whether or not you field who as that Baron laner, it's still very, very scary, still very, very consistent. And it's just one of those things. How can Secret even survive the early game when it comes to individual matchup and as well as lane matchups as well?
I mean, here's the thing, right? There's this expression that it's always most difficult when you're at the front of the race. When you're at the front, you have nobody else to look for. You need a pacekeeper to help you out there. Because if you're behind them and every team is looking to the Vietnamese region as the overall powerhouses to the SEA Championships, well, they're chasing after you. They're looking for weaknesses in your gameplay and everything that you do. Every single pick that you make, they're looking for a chance to counter that. They're looking for a way to take you down. And that's what we're seeing now. Divine Esports, I mean, they got kicked out early. They were booted out of the competition. That was a surprise to all of us. And now BRU, they just won an incredible series against EVOS. I mean, we're starting to see these teams that were a little bit iffy. We knew they were strong, but not this strong. And I think SBTC has to come in here and make a statement against Team Secret.
Yeah, I do agree. And again, SBTC back in the Summer Super Cup, the recap of which you can catch right over here, indeed. But yes, we saw them. They didn't exactly, get that, they didn't exactly have that spectacular run and they won the championship. That went to EVOS. But they, the matchup between all of those teams, top 4 teams, I think, at the Summer Super Cup, that was pretty epic. And we already saw something special with SBTC. Pulling up the talent predictions right now, I know that it's kind of like weird that everybody's kind of split. And yes, Gamernism going for SBTC, but the rest of the talent pool as well, everybody is kind of like, could be Team Secret, could be SBTC. And I feel like, this is a rare match here in the playoffs where we're not exactly sure where this is going to go, especially because Team Secret, yes, super unpredictable. Then we haven't seen SBTC's form just yet. I mean, Riku, this is going to be really difficult, I feel like, to predict. And I think we're going to go to another Game 5. What do you think?
I think it's a possibility. Team Secret already pretty much had a sample when they went up against Cerberus last time at the Summer Super Cup. And I think it could be one of those things where Team Secret defaults into, we're going to outplay towards the late game. We're going to survive. Even if we lose the early lead, it's fine. We're going to aim for the 5v5s around the Baron, around the Elder Drake, and then take advantage of the death timers and win the game. That is a possibility. We've seen Team Secret do intense base defenses before, only to turn the game around at the very last few minutes of the game. So I believe in that. I feel like there is that big possibility up against SBTC. As so long as it's not a huge lead, they can pull through.
I think Team Secret just has so much variability, right? Like, they have the chance to bring in, honestly, BO5 series, not a problem for them. I think what they might have an issue with is like BO7, right? But BO5, they have enough pocket picks, enough like random stuff they can just pull off their pockets. I mean, we saw them play a double jungle. I mean, that wasn't exactly the most serious game of their lives. But it showcased to us an idea that a lot of other teams I don't think quite understand. And so Team Secret, they seem to have a really strong grasp of the game and where it's kind of going right now, this new evolving meta. It's kind of going full circle. We've gone all the way past SEA Champions meta, back to Summer Super Cup meta, and guess what? Team Secret are pretty good too, pretty good there too. And so up against SBTC, while SBTC, like I mentioned, they have strong individual players. If they get ahead in the early game, they pull enough of a lead,
well, then they might just be able to take this series away from Secret.
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with you there, Grandin. I think when we look back at the local qualifiers, you know, it's again, it's Team Secret always playing these things first. We've never the first Varus game was from them. The first Mage bot laners was from them during the local qualifiers, and as well as the Unkillable composition with the Olaf plus Seraphine and Sona was from them. So maybe we get to see something new, considering the fact that again, you don't want to drop in towards the lower bracket. You don't want to face one team because there's still those first runner-ups coming from the Summer Super Cup.
Yep, and again, also the question of endurance. I mean, like, if they drop to the lower bracket, it could be like the best of 8, which is weird, but yeah, it could be that, because they could be up against, you know, one team. It could be a back-to-back match. Going into Champ Select right now, we were talking a lot about the draft and how crucial this is going to be for Team Secret. And Riku, you brought up, you know, we could see seeing new champions over here. What is, I know this is hard to predict because it's Team Secret, but what is the most likely scenario over here? What do you think Team Secret are going to play towards? As well as the side of SBTC, we kind of more or less know what they're capable of and what draft they're bringing in. What are your early predictions here?
You know, I'm thinking Renekton Lee Sin. If Lee Sin is not gonna get banned here, I think that can be a leeway for Team Secret to start early. But of course, Azar has been picking a lot of the